Wow, we were just talking about it, and you know what? I'm really enjoying presenting ourselves to all you folks out there. So out in YouTube land, and I'm so glad we're on YouTube and we've finally taken that step, and it looks professional.
Yeah,
looks good. But I'll tell you this, Adam, it's clear to me now more than ever. Yeah, I got a face for podcasting. It's obvious that on the mic, maybe behind the cameras where we belong. If I was in Hollywood, I would definitely be more like a producer type guy, I think. So maybe I don't know, one of the talent recruiters or something, but probably not one of the main leads. So
I've said that to a few guys. I'm like, listen, if I had a choice at this podcast, I'm like, don't get me wrong, I love talking about video games. I love talking about video game franchises, but I really feel there's someone way prettier than me that could be doing this.
I think by and large, podcasters, maybe we fit the prototype. I don't know. I feel like I have heard before that a group of like 2 or more white middle-aged males is actually referred to as a podcast. So, have you not heard that? No. That was a joke that was making the rounds for a while, but it's highly accurate. So it is highly accurate. There's a lot of podcasts out there. Anyway, so if you're watching, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. It's nice to get a few extra views on there for each episode. It's kind of nice. Looks like the one that's gotten the most views so far is definitely the Justin Roiland one.
Yeah.
So for anybody who's seen that on YouTube, so thank you for watching. All 45 subscribers, whatever we got. So it's absolutely wonderful. And today we're going to talk about something. We're going to talk about something big. Before we get to that, this is Rona Geek official podcast. On the pod with us today, we have
Leon, Plebby, and Adam.
Ooh, very nice. And, of course, Alex Austin. And today we're going to deep dive into Resident Evil. That's the big topic for today. So we're going to break this franchise down.
I get to be blonde-haired, pretty boy.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Good boy Leon.
Ooh, blonde hair.
Yeah, I think you did.
Whoa.
He was blonde.
So, all right, well, then I get to be Claire. So, let's see. And then we get to break down this game, analyze the essence of it, and discuss its strengths and weaknesses. The question we're looking to answer today, does the franchise stay true to its roots over the test of time?
Yes.
So, yeah, we'll go ahead and dive right into it. It is becoming a hot topic again because this month, later on this month, I'm going to say the 23rd, 27th, 25th, couldn't really tell you. I don't know. But Resident Evil 4 Remake comes out.
Uh-huh.
So, and it's getting quite a lot of attention, as it should.
It should, and I think through our discussion, it's going to be a real interesting take because 4, as we'll talk a little bit more now, was a huge change for Resident Evil.
And it's also, I mean, I didn't pull up the sales numbers yet on here. Maybe you could pull them up over there. But I think Resident Evil 4 was also kind of the high watermark for the series in terms of quality, in terms of the popularization of it. I think it was a very, very high watermark. Interestingly, and we'll get to it a little bit more in depth in a bit here. We'll sort of attack this chronologically. But Resident Evil 4 GameCube release initially. So it's just like shocking. But actually, there was a minute there. There was actually a minute there where it was like, so they did the Resident Evil 1 remake, and then they actually did a Resident Evil 0 directly following that in the same year in 2002. And then Resident Evil 4 debuted on GameCube. So I think there was like a 4 or 5 year span there where Nintendo had some sort of deal with Capcom that like with Shinji Mikami or something like that.
So Nintendo oftentimes did that to boost the sales of their own stuff. It was pretty normal for them to do that. Also, according to this, number 4 sold just the GameCube version, right? Yeah. We're not going to go into
that's what I wanted to know, was GameCube
just the GameCube was 1.6 million worldwide. The PS2 was 2 million.
Interesting. I thought overall it would have done more. So I think it went on to do more because there's released on PC.
5 and 6 blew it out of the water.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting. So yeah, from a critical standpoint though, Resident Evil 4 definitely a high watermark up to this point. If you exclude the recent remakes, I think they both were reviewed very, very favorably, as well as Village. So this is,
or as I like to call it, 8 Age, because if you look at the title, it's Village. The first 5 are make up 8, and they're in yellow, and then 8 Age.
Resident Evil 8 Age. Nice, very nice. I like how they do that. So Shinji Mikami, definitely considered kind of the brainchild behind this. Definitely the creator. He goes back a long way with Capcom, actually. I don't even know if Resident Evil was his first game. So he had started, let's see, he did Goof Troop. That was one of his first titles he was put on. So the Capcom doing licensed titles for early platforms. So very nice. So I think that's pretty exciting for him. Kind of get your foot in the door. So other licensed properties he had done before that with Capcom would have actually been Who Framed Roger Rabbit for the Game Boy. Aladdin. Which Aladdin? No. Trying to see. It doesn't say which version. And
it's the Super Nintendo version.
Super Nintendo version. Okay, so allegedly the superior version.
Yeah,
is what I understand.
For sure.
So interesting that he was a part of that. And then, of course, he goes on to create Resident Evil. Interesting jump going from Goof Troop and Aladdin and licensed Disney properties.
He clearly got a little too fed up with the colorfulness of things. It was like, fuck this, I'm going to make everyone die.
So, how do you make a statement out of that, right? So he... he creates this game, Resident Evil. So this ends up coming out in 1995, 6. I'll go back a screen. That'll tell us for sure, so I don't mess that up. Let's see. It was 1996. And to go from making these licensed properties and making a game where in the first 5 minutes of the game you witness like one of your team members being like eaten by a zombie on the floor.
Well, that's the one where they start with like a helicopter crash, isn't it? Or they're landing from a helicopter crash or something.
No, there was no. I don't think they crashed at the beginning.
Oh, I thought that. Am I thinking of the wrong?
Oh, maybe they did. Yeah, maybe they did.
I don't know if they crashed or they saw a crash. Is what they did.
So, well, we can actually verify this. So you
it doesn't really matter.
No, you don't crash. I believe.
Oh, okay.
No,
okay.
You're tasked with just investigating the mansion.
You just get in. Okay.
Yeah. And then as soon as you get in, there's multiple members of your team when you get there, and then everybody kind of plays a role throughout the game. But
right.
Big twist here for people who don't know, but. The bad guy going in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, big time.
Honestly, is one of the weirdest bad guys that I kind of like throughout a series, which just gets ridiculous.
Totally,
the guy lasts as a villain way longer than he ought to.
Oh, yeah.
Whisker.
It's funny, Capcom's like overestimation of like how much we want to see this character coming back again and again.
It's funny because they keep killing him supposedly, and then he keeps coming back. You're like, what the fuck is going on?
I'm pretty sure I murdered that guy with a rocket launcher, like a grenade launcher,
twice.
Yeah. But he just keeps coming back. So anyway, interesting game. So the original Resident Evil was actually conceived as a remake of an earlier horror game called Sweet Home, which I didn't know.
Yeah.
And anyway, the producer on that one was Tokuro Fujiwara. I don't think he was with Capcom, but anyway, this is a really interesting twist on this, that the original Resident Evil might have been a remake of an earlier Resident Evil type game.
It was. I remember back in the day, they had those like horror games where, remember the VHS horror games where you'd be like watching through security cameras and things like that?
Yeah.
I don't know if Sweet Home was like that, but it was just another horror thing.
Nice.
Resident Evil was just their own version of that.
Yeah, Resident Evil, like for its part, I think was kind of like a nuclear bomb in terms of like the horror genre.
Oh, yeah.
I think it just brought the horror genre right to the surface. Obviously, horror is just a huge genre in general, like across all media.
Yeah.
So it's very cool that here's a game that just really seemed to resonate with a lot of people. And I think this moved systems in its day too. Like, what was the original sales numbers on Resident Evil 1? If you could pull that up in the meantime here. So this is a Capcom title. It dropped a pretty good acclaim as well. So the first Resident Evil got great reviews. Also had one of the first sort of pre-rendered videos in PlayStation games as well. So it was very early on the pre-rendered stuff. So getting in there and seeing the in terms of what you encounter in the actual game, like that whole first portion when you see your friend getting chewed apart by a zombie, that was CG, full pre-rendered CG.
Yeah, so by December 1997, it had sold 4 million copies.
Wow.
Worldwide.
No shit. Wow. So that was one of Capcom's biggest games for a long time. Interesting too, the remake that came out for GameCube that we'll get to. I don't know.
Especially, I always look at these numbers weirdly because nowadays you look at numbers of sales for a game and compare it to this time, and they were so different because not as many people gamed. It wasn't as mass accepted as it is now.
Yeah, I mean, that was, say 4 million on a PlayStation 1 owner base of, however many there were at that point, right? 40, 50 million or whatever, right? So it's, So that's actually pretty impressive. Up to, call it, 7, 8, 9% of users of that platform have played this.
Considering that game, I don't know. I've never, okay, I don't want to say I've never played them. I think I just admitted to you that I've never played 1 and 2. And it's not exactly true that I've never played them. I've never played them for more than a few minutes.
And that's tough too nowadays, that's for sure.
Well, even with the remasters or the remakes, whatever you want to call them, they were No.
Really?
The tank controls?
Well, that's
I cannot do it.
Yeah, so it's the tank controls. So these are a lot of games around that time were doing tank controls. So it was just a lot of it was to save on action happening on the screen, so you could allocate the graphical processing power to other things happening on the screen.
Yeah.
But also part of it was just the strategy of it. So Resident Evil, at its core, Resident Evil 1 was an action title, right? For all intents and purposes.
No. See, that's one thing I horribly disagree with.
Well, no, but I'm saying what it actually turned out to be, like in regards to the player, is more like a puzzle game. You know what I mean? Like you're kind of solving different rooms as you go through.
Okay,
like,
yeah.
It was billed as an action
I don't think
game,
it's an act. No, I think it was built because it's based on the Sweet Home, right?
No, Billed, Billed. I think they sold it as an action game.
Did they?
Oh yeah, like a survival action horror. Yeah.
See, and I thought they always sold it as a horror. If you watch certain advertisements from John Romero made a for number 2.
Yeah.
He made the number 2 trailer or whatever commercial, which was live action. So
there was live action in the first game too.
Yeah, if you're getting John Romero to do your horror, your trailer, your commercial, you want horror.
No. I mean, it is horror. All I'm saying is I think my impression of the game before I ever even saw it was that you run around shooting zombies. So which is a portion of it, but it's actually heavier on solving things.
See, and I always took it as because of the way when I witnessed it, like I said, I've never played them. When I witnessed it being played, it always felt more like you weren't trying to shoot the zombies. The first thing that went through your mind was, first of all, can I afford to shoot this zombie? Can I get around it?
Oh yeah, you could. I'll tell you this: in the game, you don't spend, and this is coming from someone who's played the original once, played the remake twice. Like you don't have to be as conservative as you're thinking. Like once you get good with using like the knife and stuff like that, you could pretty well incapacitate a zombie with a single bullet and then knife him and you're good to go. Or you get you actually get the bullets or the grenades and you can actually shove grenades into their mouths as well. And
in number 1 and 2?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It's very inventive, but there was all kinds of ways to kill the zombies, not just shooting at them. But there was a lot of inventory management.
See, and there was a huge discussion of whether the first game was is classified as first or second is classified as a Metroidvania because of so much backtracking and unlocking. So you'd go to one area, find you'd have one section of the mansion available to you, go find a key or something to unlock something, and you'd have to backtrack through the mansion, find, and then it would unlock another section. And then that would unlock a different section where you'd backtrack through it. And eventually you have this singular map that you're just slowly expanding through unlocks.
Yeah.
Now, I don't agree with that statement. It's cute. It's a cute argument that it's a Metroidvania because there's a lot of backtracking and unlocking, and it's one singular map that you memorize, right?
Yep, that's right.
But I think a Metroidvania is specifically your abilities. You gain abilities that you can use in combat and use in traversal, which is what allows you to unlock.
I would
the
also say
extra
like a
space.
heavy platforming element
Yeah.
when it comes to Metroidvania games. So even more modern titles like we talked about last week, Metroid, you know what I mean? Like the Metroid Prime remake. Like it's still very heavily a platformer. You still got to do a lot of skilled jumps and things like that in there, right? Like it's definitely still barking up that tree. So I'd say Resident Evil, little less on like the mobility skill, unless you're talking about your ability to position yourself in a room full of zombies to be able to survive.
One argument, the reason I have a very weird feeling about these games is there's a lot of these purists that are like, well, back in the day they had these really tough controls because it put you afraid and it was really hard to control because it was scary
because they were purposely convoluted.
Because they were purposely convoluted. Like, no, they weren't purposely convoluted. They just sucked at making controls back then. That was not on purpose. No one designed that knowing there was a better way to do it.
Yeah.
And then designed backwards to make it worse. Nobody did that. That's just how games were then.
Yeah. So
I don't like that purist mentality. We're like, oh, I like it when the Resident Evil games have shitty controls. Fuck you. You're an idiot.
So, yeah, I would say, again, like I sort of hinted at earlier, I think a lot of that was a limitation of the system and the technology at the time, but also just an experience, right? Like there hadn't been a 3D horror type game quite that intense.
And this was barely 3D.
Right. Well, yeah, barely, yeah. So obviously 2D rendered backgrounds. Yeah, that you ran around in. They did a good enough job though of sort of giving you that depth of field.
I think they did feeling. Even with I like the cinematic shots. I think that was an interesting state. I think that was still just a limitation of the system. Yeah. I don't think that's what they really wanted. A lot of people talk to that as going, that's a huge part of the horror. And it is a huge part of the horror where you don't know what's around the next corner because of the camera angle. And I think that's pretty cool. But I don't think it was I don't think it was something they designed. I think it was just something they were limited to.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And obviously a formula that would get elaborated on over and over throughout the series, throughout the game series history. I would say by Resident Evil 2, they had already refined quite a bit of it in terms of how the tank controls actually operate.
Yes.
Let me go back here.
So Resident Evil 1 was good when it came out.
Yeah, Resident Evil 1 was good when it came out, but there wasn't much to compare it to.
Yeah.
So, in fact, by the time Resident Evil 2 came out, I think the only other survival horror that had dropped in a big way on the PS1 up to that point was Silent Hill 1. So, which in some ways was similar, some ways was different. Definitely, pretty creative with the environments and the enemies.
I was always more of a Silent Hill fan, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, you like the fog? You like the fogginess?
I like the fogginess, and I think I always liked the Silent Hill was more of a psycho thriller of like the character's own psyche. And I kind of enjoy that aspect.
Oh, here's a fun one that got by Wikipedia here. If you're in a Wikipedia editor, you see the name Biohazard in the description of Resident Evil. And of course, Biohazard being the Europe and Asia name of the game series.
Yeah.
So, and we only call it Resident Evil here in the West. So if you just hover over the word Biohazard, the band Biohazard has hijacked this link.
That's funny.
I think that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. So they really have nothing to do with the game. So, but that's pretty funny. They figured that out. Good for them. Good for them. So let's see. So Resident Evil 1 would go on. So it debuted on PlayStation. It would eventually go to the Sega Saturn. That was the last pure port for the game. Yeah. That was the last pure port. So unless you owned a PS1 or a Sega Saturn, there was no way for you to play that game for a long time. Eventually, it came out on PC, but by the time it came out on PC, there was already a remake.
Yes.
So the which we'll get to. Resident Evil 2 actually dropped just 2 years later. Just 2 years later.
Yeah, and it's widely considered to be the best of the, I guess we'll call it there's almost like 3 generations of Resident Evil games.
Yeah.
Like if you look at it, there's like 3 different, maybe 4 different generations if you really break it down. I think it's generally classified as the best of the first generation.
Okay.
Which is that classic tank controls, slow, methodical.
I would say whoever said that is wrong because Code Veronica and Resident Evil 0 are both better than Resident Evil 2. So
Code Veronica is good.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's better games than Resident Evil 2, even early on. So, interesting they would say that. So, Resident Evil 2 dropped to much acclaim in 1998, obviously to much fanfare. I remember, in particular, this one, really anticipating its release. I was very excited to see it, talking with friends about renting it right off the hop as well. So
really?
Yeah, people being very excited for this one in general. I remember it came out early on, and we rented it, went over to somebody's house and watched them play for the first couple hours of it and saw the liquor and everything. And like, it's a great game.
So the original what was this, PS2 version? No, Resident Evil 2. It sold.
It was 93% for the original.
Nice. 4.96 million copies.
Wow. Holy shit skis. So yeah, this one went full blockbuster then.
Yeah.
For Capcom. That's incredible. So the original PlayStation version at 93%.
This is also, I think, where they introduced my boy Leon.
Absolutely. Interestingly, this is also the only one that was ever ported to Nintendo 64.
Yeah.
It actually got a Nintendo 64 port.
Which is really, really weird because they did for it. So in the original version, they didn't do pre-rendered cinematics.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, because of the way the other consoles couldn't handle, I think it was Resident Evil 2. They couldn't handle the cinematics, so they had to like pre-render them. Yes. And it was weird to see a pre-rendered cinematic on 64.
Well, they had to. It wasn't just that it was pre-rendered. It's like they had to strip it down to like the lowest resolution possible to save on pixels, right?
Well,
like
it was also it didn't when the cinematics ran. They were pre-shot, so they were just videos that were playing rather than like in-game footage while the game was running, doing it.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Resident Evil 2, and it said GameCube as well, but I was trying to remember, was that like a straight port or what was that? I don't recall that. I don't know. So interesting. This one also released on Dreamcast. This was also the age of Dreamcast. Might have been one of the latter games. No, it would have been an early game for Dreamcast, I guess, in 1998.
I know so little about
Dreamcast launched in 2000, though, so it would have had to have been after 2000. So interesting, they got a version of this like far after the fact. Huh.
I forget about the Dreamcast most of my life.
Wow. So Resident Evil 2 came out to much fanfare, and this also introduced new characters as well. So you played as, who was it, Claire and Chris in the original?
Yep, Claire and Chris, yep.
And in the...
No. First one was, I thought, was it Claire and Chris? I thought it was Jill and Chris.
Jill and Chris, you're right. Claire was Resident Evil 3, wasn't it?
Claire is 2, I thought.
No, in 2 we have...
I thought it was Leon and Chris's sister, which I thought it was Claire.
Oh, maybe. Didn't name her in here. I don't recall then. So anyway, Leon is the one you play in for a good chunk of the game, and he also comes back later in Resident Evil 4, so you get to see more of him as well. This was actually a really cool game for a couple of reasons. One, because they really took the horror elements to the absolute next level. They made the game more immersive, or as immersive as it could possibly be on the PlayStation 1 with the limitations there. And I think anybody who's played it in earnest remembers the first encounter with the liquor that I mentioned earlier. This happens within the first 10 minutes of the game when you're Leon, and you're basically put up against an enemy you've never seen before. Is basically kind of like a little mini boss, you know what I mean, with the first time you encounter him. And it's basically a zombie creature that can like crawl along the ceiling, and then you see it skitter across the window at the end of the hallway. Like it was terrifying for its day, and just so much fun.
It's funny how often like that moment clearly had an impact on a lot of people. Yeah, because if you watch a lot of the movies and TV shows and stuff, that moment where Leon fights a liquor is like usually oh my god, it's coming moment. They hype it up a lot. Yeah, there was even a Resident Evil movie recently where it was like I don't know what it was called. Welcome to Raccoon City or something like that. Yeah, but was it the one where there was just like an army of liquors and somebody was controlling the army of liquors or something? Anyway, it was pretty wild looking, whatever it was. But anyway, I haven't seen it. Let's see. We'll touch on movies in this too. We will. We've got to. I will not be favorable toward the movies. I don't care what anybody says. So anyway, that's Resident Evil 2. So I don't know. I still, as far as I can tell, a lot of people consider it their first love. I think obviously based on the sales, it's probably where they came in the series. Yeah, for a lot of people, it was their first game. I think that's why. Yeah, and I guess all you really have to know from the first one is Raccoon City. Bunch of shit went down. Shit didn't get fixed. Maybe it got worse. I'm back there. That's all you really have to know. So that's... the story was pretty simple. There was some company accidentally let out a virus that... Oh, the Umbrella Corps. Yeah. The Wuhan company accidentally... It's a little too close to home nowadays. Dare you? How dare you? It's a little too close to home. Accidentally let out a virus and we had to nuke a city. That's basically it. 'Cause I think it gets nuked at the end of 2, doesn't it? Or at the end of 3? Maybe at the end of 3, yeah, maybe at the end of 3. But the so in Resident Evil 1, you're just exploring the mansion to try and understand the sort of epicenter of this thing, and then Resident Evil 2, you're actually in the city, you're in Raccoon City. I think you also spend a good time in RPDs. Oh yeah, that's right. In the police station. In the police station. And anyway, again, the setting very, very cool, definitely very immersive in this one. I do recall Resident Evil 2 being a little bit heavier on the action as well, like more ammunition, more zombies, more shooting. So they were able to have, I think, double the amount of zombies on screen. Oh shit! Wow. Yeah. Wow. Which is why, yes, they definitely had more. Which is, I think it's a huge discussion to have as we go on through the Resident Evil games. I find that they keep talking about them getting more and more action based. Yeah. And how at some point, and we'll talk about this when we get to 4, I think the big deal. It's clear they wanted this to be more action and the system held them back. Yeah. Yeah. And you can tell it because every game gets more and more zombies, more and more action every single time. And this is clearly still another step in that direction. Interesting path here as well. So they had completed a game that they were calling Resident Evil 1.5. They abandoned it when it was 60 to 80% complete and moved on to Resident Evil 2. It's so complete that people have been able to take it and actually get it running and play through it. Absolutely wild. Yeah. So anyway, Shinji Mikami as producer got the job done on that, which is pretty cool. Yeah. So definitely like that.
Let's see. So moving on to Resident Evil
3 Nemesis.
This was a year later.
Yeah, it was 1 year. That's crazy, eh?
Now, interesting because wasn't this one of the remakes as well recently?
I don't know.
Okay,
this is not one of the remakes that I cared about if it was true.
So, yeah, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis came out a year later. I think this is an interesting thing. Oh, you plays Jill Valentine in this one. This is the one where he plays Jill. Or she's back, rather.
Yeah, she's back. Yeah. So just to give you a sense of what we're talking about here, it sold 41,395 copies.
Wow.
In its GameCube release.
That's insane.
So
you're talking about Resident Evil 3?
Yes.
That's absolutely wild. So basically, I mean, for all intents and purposes, a commercial failure. So now the remake, there was a remake. It was released in 2020, and that came out to much fanfare.
Sorry, that was just sold just in the United States.
Yeah. Oh, gotcha. Okay.
I don't see a worldwide one.
Yeah, the remake did a lot better anyway. So it's came out to much better reviews and everything as well.
Sure.
Yeah. Although the Resident Evil 2 remake did even better than that. So that's like one of the highest rated games from like the last 3 years.
Again, we're kind of talking about, it sounds like Resident Evil 2 is when everyone started jumped on the bandwagon ship and got
I can see that. Let's see. Funny. On Facebook, it's talking about the Nemesis as a creature that's heavily inspired by the T-1000 Terminator from the 1991 film.
That makes sense.
I can see that.
Yeah, that tracks.
Coming back.
But it's also felt like it was inspiration because there is the villain number 2 that sort of would just show up and fuck around with you and had like a huge trench coat.
Oh yeah, at the police station.
Yeah, he kind of reminded me. He kind of reminded me of just him. Like clearly, he was an evolution of that guy too.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I'm trying to remember what that was. What was his name? Oh, that's really gonna bother me now. Yeah, look him up.
Hunk? You're talking about the guy with the trench coat?
Yeah, the big guy.
A Hunk.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Thank you. So the Resident Evil 3, then 1999, not too much fanfare. When did it actually come out on PlayStation 2, though?
Ooh, on PlayStation 2,
because on
2009, that was PlayStation 3.
Crazy. What a long history for some of these games coming out on various platforms. So this is the first series we've covered where it's like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years in between platform releases.
And not only that, but how can it get on that many different platforms? Like we lived in a different world back then. It came out on PSP.
That's insane.
Via emulation.
That's insane. Yeah, it's nuts. Yeah, some like Dreamcast, GameCube, PlayStation. Like it's just nuts the amount of platforms at that time. Wild.
I don't think this got as much love. I don't know. Did you play this one?
No, I did not play it when it originally came out. I played it long after.
I think that tells you something a lot about it.
Yeah. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's tough to say, man. Like, I think it was the sped up development cycle, though.
Could be.
Shinji Mikami was still involved here as a producer. Although it was interesting, one of the original creators, and I'm trying to remember who jumped ship on the second one, but the second one was being heavily criticized by one of the original Biohazard Resident Evil creators for the story. So he just didn't appreciate it. Yeah, so maybe some within Capcom already kind of saw where it was heading, and that there would be some serious attrition coming following Resident Evil 2. So because it's shocking.
And I find that weird because the next game, which I think is the most divisive of all the games, because it changed Resident Evil dramatically. So I'm not going through all the different side ones. I guess we should talk about Code Veronica for a second.
Well, there was also Resident Evil Survivor. Resident Evil Survivor was actually a light gun shooter that came out on the PlayStation in 2000. We're not going to spend any time on that, though. It's just a light gun shooter.
They're famous, but that's about it.
Well, take it for what it is.
Yeah.
They had a couple of them. The next one
I don't know. There's a lot of side ones that I don't know a lot about because I never really touched on them. They never really affected my life.
Now, interestingly, I think this one came out first. This is Code Veronica is the next one. So this actually came out, I believe, first. Didn't it come out on Dreamcast?
It's possible.
Yeah, Code Veronica 2000. I'm pretty sure that was a Dreamcast released first.
Code Veronica was the one that introduced the Wesker. Was it the Wesker? No. Was it the
Wesker?
Wesker
Wesker was in the original.
No, who was the twin kid? They were the kids like the director of Umbrella or something.
Oh, who you end up playing with as like much later in the series?
No, I don't think you don't end up playing as them. They become villains. One guy's like insane. He has to be alone. And his sister's put in like a coma.
Oh my god. Okay, so this is starring Claire and I believe Chris. So,
is this Chris?
Yeah,
this
I'm
one?
pretty sure. Yeah.
It tells you like I don't know. It's considered it expanded the story quite a bit, but it's not really a loved game.
Well, this was the first one that did the full real-time 3D environments, so maybe that had something to do with it. So this is graphically, it's the first major departure from the franchise as people had known it up to that point. And I don't like. The Dreamcast was good. I don't know that it was powerful enough to really do a great job of some of those tight environments, right? And the kind of detail that it needed to have. There's something very gritty about the pre-rendered environments that just worked up until that point.
Yeah, but I do have to ask the question now that we're kind of making this evolution to a more action-packed thing. Do we think that the slow combat is one of the original things that made it great? Or do you think it's something that was just a limitation of the power at the time? Do you think it's one of the pillars? Do you think it's one of the things, the raison d'etre for this, that needs to be there to design it as a Resident Evil?
No, I don't think so. It's eventually it was going to have to make the jump into full 3D environments. Eventually it was going to. It's just maybe it was a little bit premature. So that's all. And I think that's what hurt it, honestly.
Yeah. And what about like the slower combat? Because as we keep going through these, action's getting faster and faster and faster.
The action's getting faster.
And more, and you're expected to kill more of the zombies. You're not just running away from them.
I would say it hasn't really hit a fever pitch yet at this point in the franchise. I would say the fever pitch doesn't hit until maybe Resident Evil 5.
Oh, I would say it was going to hit 4.
I mean, 4 was a solid action title, but I would say it was the right amount of action. It was like just like the premium amount of action.
Okay.
So, and Resident Evil 5, however, just went like balls out on
but you're okay with it. You don't think the slow combat is one of the pillars that make it?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay, cool. No. I just need to know now before we got into the next generation.
Oh, no, because with more powerful systems come faster, more aggressive zombies and more of them. So that's just...
And you need the game to ramp up. You need games to constantly ramp up. You can't just keep having slow guys that just come around corners.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
So, but
no, I think 3, Veronica expanded the game, had some, like it introduced, it was Albert Wesker. The antagonist, it was Albert Wesker in this one. And Steve Burnside, that's what it is, Burnside's kids. Burnside's daughter. He was one of the scientists or something.
Oh, Steve Burnside was like a supporting character in this one.
Yeah, he was eventually turned out to be the monster with the eye on his shoulder.
Yeah.
I don't remember all the details of him, though.
Interesting, this came out, it's on the same development timeline as, close to it as Dino Crisis. So that would have been the first game where Capcom used the full 3D environment.
Was it really?
And Dino Crisis, for those who haven't played, it's basically like Resident Evil, but like in space, but also
on fighting dinosaurs.
I
do remember that one.
Something like Alien, but like they couldn't get the license for Alien.
So it's just raptors.
So yeah, it's just raptors. Yeah.
Clever girl.
Yeah. So cool fucking idea. I would love to see a Dino Crisis movie. God, that would be sick.
There is some wild game ideas that are just not fit for this.
No, I would love to see that as a movie. Oh my God. Is it a movie? Has it ever been a movie?
God, I hope not. If it has, it was like a weird one-off thing.
God, I hope they make that into a movie. It's just, what an idea. What an idea.
I gotta bring us to, I think, the weirdest, most divisive, and weirdest for me, Resident Evil.
Really?
Resident Evil 4 touches me in a way that I don't like.
Well, wait. There's more, though. There's more.
Sure.
No. There's more to get to before we get to that point.
There's
because
plenty.
you just jumped like 4 years.
I know, but
there's a lot of bullshit.
The other ones matter?
Yes, they do matter. What are you talking about? First off, a lot of people got in on Resident Evil on the remake on the GameCube. That was the first game for a lot of people.
That is true.
So, and it was, this was an era when...
So but it was really just up. The problem with it is it was upscale. All it was upscaled and it stretched. So it looked weirder. That's all it really did.
It didn't look weird. It looked smoother and it played smoother. Like it was just a good game. So
I
found enjoyed it.
Things looked strange in it.
No, I didn't think so at all. Resident Evil remake, very, very good. Had a nice grainy effect to it too, I remember. Like it was just cool looking. And on top of that, I mean, that was an era when Resident Evil Remake came out, very solid. Also, Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes came out like a year before that, also very solid. That was a remake of the original Metal Gear. Very good.
It was for the GameCube, wasn't it?
Very good remakes coming out around that time from Capcom and Konami. So really interesting thing kind of going on there. But that didn't last. So, and then, so Resident Evil Remake, for those who hadn't played it, I know they're talking now about remaking like the original. They're going to remake and do a full-fledged new title.
Well, they did. I thought they did they did a remake. I thought that was what the
I think that was just a restart of the franchise. You're talking about the one that was just titled Resident Evil.
Or are you talking the movie? Sorry?
No, the games.
No, there's one called Resident Evil. It was a remake of the first one.
No, it wasn't a full remake though. Like you don't fight like a pig-headed man in the original game.
Oh, it was a remake, so they adjusted things.
But I think what they're working on now is they're trying to redo the original game as like a modern title, like in the mansion.
So I don't want to say because a remake can define both changes and no changes. So a remake with literally no changes, just graphical upgrades.
Well, I think it's going to stay the truest to its roots. So that's my understanding. So
good luck, guys.
Yeah, good
luck with those tank controls.
But no. I don't think it'll be tank controls.
Well, if you're willing to get rid of tank controls, then you should get rid of a lot of stuff. Because then once you get rid of tank controls, the game gets a lot easier.
Adam's like, just get rid of the guns and the people and just make a game.
But seriously, once you get rid of the tank controls, how much easier are fighting the zombies? And then the whole game changes.
Let me make a case for tank controls, sir. So because Resident Evil 0 is my favorite of the original style Resident Evils.
Wow.
And I think it's an amazing game. So I really, really enjoyed it. This was a GameCube release originally. I think it did end up going to PlayStation 2 and everything. Oh my God. And everything else eventually went to the GameCube, the Wii, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. So you can now get it on Nintendo Switch if you want to try it out. And this actually had the same sort of graphical quality as the Resident Evil 1 remake on the GameCube, which is pretty cool. Yeah. So I really, really enjoyed both those games. Resident Evil 0 in particular, I was quite surprised by how much I liked it. I did like how smoothly it switched between the two characters when you were trying to accomplish objectives with like two separate things going on at the same time. I really enjoyed that. And then seeing them come back together and fight, they sort of follow each other around a little bit.
What is it? The medic and the convict?
Yeah. One was a convict. Yeah, he had the handcuff hanging from his wrist,
Oh, what a badass.
Such a badass. And he had he didn't have a mullet, he had a Tennessee waterfall. You know about Tennessee waterfall? Flows on top, down the back. Yeah, shaved sides. You know what I'm talking about. So anyway, what was that guy's name? That guy was great. Billy Cohen.
Yeah, Billy.
Billy Cohen. So this was Rebecca Chambers and Billy Cohen. What a badass man, Billy.
And Rebecca, I think she shows up in number 1, I think, doesn't she?
Dude, Billy Cohen looks straight up like Patrick Swayze from Roadhouse. Like just more tattoos. Like that's what I want. I want a Resident Evil about that.
Except
guy.
He turns out to be innocent, doesn't he? Because they thought he killed a bunch of people.
Yeah,
he didn't. He's just an unlucky dude.
Well, I mean, like I don't recall the game proving him innocent, but I think Rebecca just learns to trust him and buy his story.
Oh, maybe that's what it is. Yeah, that's probably what it is.
Yeah. Very, very cool game. For those who haven't played it, I really, really like this. If you're going to play any of the tank control ones, the original Resident Evil remake and Resident Evil 0 would be your best bets.
I didn't realize they kept to the tank controls all the way up to the GameCube era.
Yeah, this is 2002.
That is wild that they still had because I think this was still before Resident Evil 4. So no, you're right. They wouldn't have gotten rid of that.
And what's even crazier is this came out 8 months after the Resident Evil 1 remake on the GameCube. So these are two in the same year.
Well, they did the 1 to get everyone excited and then did this one.
Resident Evil 0, yeah. For as excited as it got them. Probably not very excited. So anyway, Resident Evil 0, if you haven't tried it, definitely give it a shot. I quite like it. Adam fucking hates its guts and wants it to die.
I don't like any... you know what's funny? Newsflash. I don't like any Resident Evil before 7.
Well, so we got more to cover here then. Guess what? You're getting another light gun shooter, buddy. Fuck you. 2003's Resident Evil Dead Aim, baby.
Oh my god.
And actually, this is a bit of a blind spot for me. Resident Evil Outbreak. What was this one all about? Do you know anything about this?
No, I don't have a clue.
So it actually was it's the same time period as 2 and 3. It had a sequel to it, or at least an expansion to it. And it says it's a series of episodic storylines in a zombie-inhabited Raccoon City. And the screenshots that it shows of the game are not particularly forgiving. So I would say that maybe this is definitely one we're skipping. And I'm looking at the names here. Well, the characters, I don't recognize a single solitary one.
No, we have to recognize that we're skipping it, not because it's a good thing. We recognize it's bad, but we're not here to poo-poo and just shit for an hour.
Interesting. So, yeah, there's a few scenarios in there. I don't know why they would have even bothered. Was Shinji Mikami on this one?
No.
He was not. Interesting.
This was a cash grab, and we all know it.
Yeah, this is a corporate cash grab here. That's
we know it. We can accept it.
So it's all about, baby, because he was busy working. He was busy working on this one, Resident Evil 4.
My favorite one to talk about.
Woo! Love Resident Evil 4.
I don't know. There's something really, every single time I've like touched on Resident Evil 4, because of the maps, all I can think of is, this would be better if I was Dante.
Oh my god! But you're not. You're a man with a gun.
But like, you have to, you know that Devil May Cry came out of the development of this, right?
Did it though?
While trying to develop this, they created Devil May Cry.
Oh, no kidding.
So they were originally creating...
And then they brought it all back around to Resident Evil 6, which we'll get to.
Kind of, yeah. So they were originally creating Resident Evil 4, and even the creator himself, who openly stated that, hey, we're making action games now. Like, he straight up called it. He's like, this is how this is going.
Yeah.
Even him during the creation, when they got to a point like, this is too far. They went, we've gone too far. We need to dial it back. Yeah. But they liked what they were creating.
Yeah.
Everyone just kind of kept... It was the problem of everyone just liked what they were creating, so it just kept going. And eventually, the creator... what was his? The hell is his name?
Shinji Mikami.
Shinji Mikami. Eventually, basically went, we're going too far, guys. So what they did was to keep that ball rolling, that energy rolling. They spun off and created Devil May Cry.
Oh yeah, and of course, so interestingly, that's Hideki Kamiya. So he was the creator of, the sort of accepted creator of the Devil May Cry franchise, but also went on to found Platinum Games and do some other huge action titles like Beautiful Joe, Okami. I thought he had something to do with God Hand, but maybe that was just Shinji Mikami. But yeah, interesting heritage there.
Yeah, so this is the game that, and because of the shared development history, the maps and the artistic style, because it was very gothic. This one was very gothic in comparison to the previous ones,
but like also kind of emo. Like more emo than Leon in Resident Evil 4.
Oh, definitely. It had the Leon hair flip and it had all that jazz. But because of its shared relationship, all I can think about is Devil May Cry is better than this. And it upsets me every single time.
Oh, as an action game, Devil May Cry 1 was like shocking to me. I'm like, this is so much fucking fun. Like I couldn't stand it. Like it was insane.
But I have to give it I don't know. It just feels like I play this game and it's not the original in my mind. It's not like the originals. It's got this more like gothic horror rather than like a more modern horror.
Yeah,
I guess you could call it.
Yeah,
they both take place in modern times with guns and stuff, but it's got the gothic architecture, which I think is interesting and cool. But I just every single time I went, no, I could really just. I'd rather it be Dante right now.
Resident Evil 4 was trying to stick to horror roots. I believe it was because it is about you're infiltrating like a cult in Spain who's kidnapped. Who's kidnapped the vice president's daughter, and you have to go get her.
But
it is a cult. There's some real weird shit going on there. Real weird inbred looking shit. Guys with chainsaws for hands. Like it gets pretty fucking wild.
It's also different in that way because if you talk about the original, I think 4 starts the second generation of Resident Evil.
Yep, I agree.
The first one is corporate espionage. It's about, it's about Umbrella.
Yeah.
Right? And it's about corporations and a biohazard. It's
about how can we bring Wesker back again? How can we do it? We're going to do it.
This one is about, it's more culty. It's cultist.
Yep.
It's a darker, I don't want to say it's a darker tone. That's not correct. It's a more supernatural tone.
Yeah.
But we all know that nothing in Resident Evil is supernatural.
Yeah. And I like that it fully established that, in fact, it doesn't have to be about zombies. Yeah. It could just be about other fucked up shit.
Kind of. Yeah, you're right. And that is also what it set up. So I think a lot of people were really upset about this for that.
Really? I don't know, man. I thought it got pretty good reviews and stuff at the time.
Oh, it got really good reviews.
Was it like Game of the Year everywhere too?
I don't know if it was Game of the Year, but it got really good reviews.
So on the GameCube, this is the first place it dropped was on GameCube. It got a 96 out of 100 I'm seeing as an aggregator score.
Oh, yeah.
Even by the time it made it to PS3, this was years later. I think I played it on PS3 too. 84 out of 100.
Yeah, it was. Here's the problem: is if you were one of the original. If you liked the originals, if you're one of those diehard tank controls, horror, like true horror games, this was more action based, and they had way more set pieces that are like cool guy set pieces with like
you're right,
the Matrix,
Oh yeah.
Well, Chinese
this was also
martial
an era
arts.
of quick time events, right?
Oh,
so there was a
God,
lot
yeah.
of quick time events to
Yeah.
finish off bosses and things like that.
Right, yeah. So like they had a lot of that added into the game.
There was even
now.
bosses that were basically like the entire thing wasn't there one was there was like a giant anglerfish or something coming after you in the water, and I thought that whole battle was basically like a quick time event. I don't remember
this one.
I'm pretty sure that was Resident Evil 4. Yeah,
That was 7.
maybe they both did it.
Maybe they both did.
Maybe I did play 7. I don't know.
Maybe they both did it. I don't know. It just it felt more like like people were wearing darker trench coats now. Like this is, I think, where they show. Was it Did Wesker show up in this one in his iconic now like black trench coat?
I believe so.
This is where everything became the Matrix.
Yeah.
And it became cool guys with slick.
In 2004, we are still in the shadow of the Matrix. This is absolutely true. So,
Yeah.
But he is wearing a really cool, like, I don't know what you would call this, like a flight jacket?
Yeah.
Yeah, like a pilot's jacket. It's pretty fucking sweet.
The flag
Look at the
jackets,
collar.
whatever.
Look at the collar on that.
It is cool. I think it was a
Fucking fuzzy.
fundamentally different game, and there's clearly a lot of people that came into the Resident Evil now. Like there was the first group that came into it at number 2, and then now we have another batch of a shit ton of people coming into it, and they were different people than the first.
Interesting how many versions this went through in development. Look at it. Development, it's going
It
through
was
so
a
many
nightmare.
versions. Fog version. Actually, so it was originally announced as GameCube exclusive. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Well, it was a GameCube exclusive.
So it was one of the, it says 5 games. So that must have been this, Resident Evil 1 remake, Resident Evil 0, Beautiful Joe, and Okami.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that would have been all of them.
Yeah, it's a wild...
Interesting.
It's a wild ride.
Yeah.
And because they went through that old classic horror, went all the way up to more action, then came back down.
Yeah.
Like, this was a wild development.
Yeah, interesting. So, but they ended up, I think, final version, I think this is up until probably, like in terms of original titles, up until probably Village, I feel like nothing ever really topped this. So I think it took that long.
I think
it took that long.
I think 5 and 6 topped it for sales. Are you saying, like, stylistically, quality-wise, as a good game?
Interesting that in here... Stylistically. Okay. So I think in here, this is interesting. Mikami wrote the entire story in just 3 weeks, and he was inspired by Onimusha 3 Demon Siege. And I don't know if you know about Onimusha 3 and 4,
games.
but they're so fucking good.
Onimusha 3, was that the one with...
Yep.
Oh, it is! yeah, okay. I was just looking at the cover art for Onimusha 3.
What's his name? Jean
Reno.
Yeah, Jean Reno. Yeah,
Jean Reno.
So the French actor of what was Leon the Assassin?
Yeah,
fame,
what a wild game that they're like, okay, we have this...
Leon the Professional.
Leon the Professional, yeah. Well, what a wild game that they went... I'm just going on a small tangent here because it's inspired, I guess. But
fully love the series.
Yeah, but it's just wild that like we have this fantastical samurai mythical game.
Yeah.
And then we're just going to add like it's like basically it's the equivalent of going, here's Jean-Claude Van Damme. He's now in the fucking game. No. Not like, it's not someone like who looks like Jean-Claude Van Damme. It's Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Yeah. full on. Full on Jean Reno in this one. And then, dude, we got to do this series at some point because
we should talk about this one.
Dude, because Onimusha 4 was fucking great. And then, sorry, I think it was called Dawn of Dreams. No, I lied. Maybe it was Dawn of Dreams. So I think...
Well, that's the only other fourth one, really.
Yeah, it must have been Dawn of Dreams. But yeah, I remember this. So this was, it was actually co-op.
Wow.
It was a co-op PS2 game, and it was like 4 different characters you could play.
Wow, we'll have to talk about that one.
And then they fucking murdered the series with, what was the next one that came out?
Onimusha Soul?
Maybe.
I think that was the next big one.
I think they're missing a game on here.
I don't know.
Because Onimusha 3...
they're
Onimusha Dawn of Dreams was I think that was the rough one, I'm pretty sure.
Possible.
Interesting. I got to go back and look this up because I think they're actually missing a game on here.
It's possible. We're going to talk about that series somewhere else because I have not done my research or played those games recently.
Weird. Okay, anyway, we digress from this little tangent we went on about Onimusha, but we love Onimusha.
Yeah, we love Onimusha.
Definitely would like to see that come back in a serious way. Anyway, they went on a release. This was 2002 by the time they got to that point. So they went on a pretty aggressive production cycle then on that one.
Yeah, I know. I think this one was very divisive, and I think it set a bad precedent of a game that was about horror, where at this point it felt more like Devil May Cry had that gothic feeling, that kind of horror-ish gothic feeling, because it came from Resident Evil.
Yep.
But you can clearly tell that horror was never its goal, right? It was clearly a, I don't know how to word it. It was too cool for school.
Yeah.
Right? Every time something horror would happen, there'd be a joke to run it down. This game...
Or Ada Wong would show up.
Or Ada Wong.
Oh, and there was a lot more Ada Wong in the PS2 version.
Yeah, I still don't... This game didn't feel horror enough because you always felt too much of a badass, and everyone was doing too much John Woo action stuff. So
it wasn't an era. Funny how these
I never
things,
liked it. I never liked it mostly because I didn't feel it was horror.
But they tend to... It's funny how these games tend to kind of represent the eras in which they come out in, too.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Resident Evil is completely just based on everything else around it.
Yeah, that's funny.
And you can see that happening.
Onimusha, for sure, by the time you get to Resident Evil 4. There's a lot of...
Actually, I think Onimusha is more based on this and Devil May Cry. Like,
maybe.
I think Onimusha had more of an impact on this than the other way around.
But Onimusha Warlords came out pretty early, actually. We'll go into it later, but Onimusha Warlords came out, I think, 1998.
Yeah,
it was pretty early.
I think Onimusha Warlords impacted this game for sure.
So then we get to Resident Evil Deadly Silence. So this was, let's see, it was made to commemorate the 10th anniversary. Interesting. I don't know much about this one. I don't
know any of these up until Resident Evil 5 because I know Umbrella Chronicles came out on the Wii and no one gives a fuck.
Yeah.
It's sad that there are so many of these side offshoot games that I just don't know about because they came out weirdly.
Yeah. Interesting. This is referring to Resident Evil 1 though, so I almost wonder if it was just some version of Resident Evil 1.
It's possible.
Yeah, it definitely looks like this is definitely Resident Evil 1. So yeah, I don't know what this was. Anyway, so let's see. So moving on from that one, Resident Evil: The Umbrella Chronicles. So that was a Wii one. That was the Wii. I remember this. Oh my god. So this is an on-the-rail shooter that came out on the GameCube, or I'm sorry, on the Wii.
On the Wii.
So with the Wii and the motion controls, like there were so many versions of game series that got an on-the-rail shooter. It was like this. Dead Space was one of them. There was a whole bunch of series that got on-the-rail shooters on the Wii, and for a while it was like the third-party creators, actually, the third-party developer houses actually thought that this is what people wanted.
Yeah.
On the Wii. Oh, it's just hilarious.
I don't know why. It was. Oh my god. The Wii was bad.
Yeah, it's just it was kind of a low point for quality of games, but high point for some fun because of Wii Sports.
Yeah.
So, interesting dichotomy. So Resident Evil 5. So now I would say this was the more divisive title than Resident Evil 4. What do the sales figures say?
So this one sold 13.4 million.
Good fucking gracious.
This one sold like hot fire.
So now this came out in the heyday of the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. This was 2009. It was a co-op action shooter game. Very light on the horror elements, I would say. And lots of guns, lots of ammo.
They made two decisions. One decision that was interesting because this is the first one that was basically set during the day. Or a very bright environment.
Oh yeah, you were in Africa. You were in West Africa. Yep. Yeah. So it was set in an imaginary city country called Kijuju.
Yeah, I'm not gonna try.
Yeah, that's an interesting name. So and then they have to confront, of course, one Albert Wesker,
of course, naturally.
So, and then they also have to find. They have to confront Jill Valentine as well. She's gone.
Yeah, because you thought she was dead. I think it was either at the end of the last game or the beginning of this game. I forget which one it was, where she and Wesker went out a window together.
So, good on them though. For so I guess Leon was. I don't know. Was he supposed to be Latino?
I didn't notice that if it was.
So, but they finally branched out here in terms of being more inclusive. You do have the first black protagonist as well with Shiva Alomar in here. So, definitely
this
cool way
game
to branch out.
Got a lot of flack for racism.
Well, that's because it was set in Africa.
That's the weird thing is there was a huge debate where there was a reviewer that basically called it racism because it was the white knight syndrome where the white dude came in and all the black guys were the villains and the bad guys and he had to shoot all the black guys. And so a lot of people took that to be a form of racism. But the argument came up at the time well, you didn't have a problem with him shooting Spanish. The white guy, Leon, shooting Spanish people.
There was a lot of murdering Spanish people.
Yeah.
Ibrian Spanish people.
It was a huge debate. There was a whole... It it had some racism. It was one of the early days of a lot of politics hitting video games.
Yeah, you're right. In terms of wokeism, I would say. So that was one of the early.
I don't know if necessarily racism is classified as wokeism, but yeah.
No, it was like pre-wokeism.
Yeah,
because it was just like people sort of calling it out for that, and I don't like. I played it. I don't recall ever thinking like this is particularly bad. Like there's zombies in Africa. Like I get it.
Yeah, so, it's they wanted a different environment than what they've been doing.
Yeah. Anyway, but I mean, Chris would have been the expert on this shit by now. This is third round.
Is this also the game where they made Chris like his arms were fucking tanks?
Oh yeah,
where they beefed him up.
Totally. He was a beefcake, dude.
Yeah.
Beefcake. So look at the cover. Look at the cover on this. You see these biceps? I can't zoom in fast enough.
You don't have to. I can see him from miles.
How do I zoom in? I'm trying. Anyway. So yeah, this was the one. He had huge biceps. Maybe that's really what they had a problem with.
I remember Rob really pushed me to play this with him. I never did.
It's because it was co-op, right?
Yeah.
I think it was online co-op too.
Yeah, it was.
Pretty sure it was.
Yeah, he pushed me to play it on because he came out on PC at some point.
Yep.
He pushed me to play it on PC with him. I was like, nah, I'm good. This right now, by the way, is the best-selling Resident Evil game.
Really?
It remains the best-selling title in the Resident Evil franchise.
That's kind of nuts.
Over even 8.
Wow.
Over even Village. Now, I haven't seen the numbers. I'm just looking at the sales at what they stayed on this one.
Dude, the 360 was huge, man. It was huge. It was just absolutely massive. I was working at the G-Stop Lounge when this came out, and I remember the marketing campaign around this just being like unprecedented, like just the amount of money that they threw behind it. Clearly worth it for Capcom because it did end up going on to sell very well. And this was also the only, as far as I know, this was the only memorable midnight launch I think we ever did for a Resident Evil game. I don't think any of the others really got anywhere near this.
And that makes sense because, again, this is the best-selling one. I don't know. I always felt this game was clearly going in the direction. This game reminded me too much of Gears of War.
Yeah.
Because I think it even had a little bit of cover in it. It had a little bit of cover.
Yeah,
mechanics.
totally. Oh, yeah.
It was not really useful, but it did have it.
Again, of its place and time. It's starting to draw from all the other properties around it.
And I think that's a huge factor in Resident Evil is I find that Resident Evil isn't itself.
Yeah.
It's always just a factor of its environment around it.
Yeah.
It is not, it doesn't define its own franchise. It is defined by other franchises.
So one thing we should probably mention here too. So I think there was something else that's happened here. So
yeah, we should talk about these.
So now at this point, you might almost be able to say that Resident Evil 4 was the first one. It was heavily influenced by the Resident Evil film franchise. So the first one,
the Resident Evil Nemesis, which was out in 1999, had an ad that said, I forget how it went, like, call in and have your chance to be in the Resident Evil movie.
What? Really?
Yeah. Because it was only, like, the movie came out in, 2002?
Yeah.
Nemesis was 1999, so 3 years before, right? So it was in development, clearly.
This is, of course, the seminal film starring Mila Jovovich and Michelle Rodriguez.
Yeah.
And I remember going into that, like, boy, if they just make it anything like the original, it'll be good, but...
The problem is you know what the problem was? The creators of the game at the time thought Resident Evil was an action game. So guess what they made? An action movie.
Yeah.
But their players, because remember, this is number 4, thought Resident Evil was a horror game.
Well, I call Resident Evil 1, she was running a lot. She was kind of on the run a lot. Like she was definitely on the defense. And then Resident Evil 2 came out. The cover definitely changes style drastically. Yeah, so she's on the cover like dual wielding like automatic pistol type weapons.
Yeah.
She has ammo strapped to her. So definitely a jump from Resident Evil 1 to Resident Evil 2. Not unlike the games, but the Resident Evil 1 was not necessarily just about these agents going and exploring a mansion and going through and all that bullshit.
I mean, it had a good starting premise.
Yeah.
Which was you played a character with amnesia, so you didn't know what was going on. So you spent the whole time through her boots not knowing what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
And you were not exploring a mansion.
She just wakes up in the lab.
Yeah, and like a mansion above the lab.
Yeah.
And then you go into the lab. So it's not quite it's a different mansion. They don't really explore the mansion. Like, whereas the first one, they explore the mansion, and the lab is a small portion. In this one, there's the mansion, and then the lab, and then the mansion is a small portion of the lab.
So interesting so I'm just looking at box office returns on these, and it's looking like it was ramping up pretty quickly Although I'm having trouble seeing the first one, but by the third one made like 3 times as much money as the second one.
I'm amazed.
And it's definitely looking even like her guns are bigger in that cover.
So number 3.
So I really think that at some point, just call it commercialism, call it what you will. I think like the actiony style of the movie started to inform back to the games a little bit because they were making money.
No.
You don't think?
No. So what
Because
happened?
Resident Evil 5 feels like this movie cover.
Okay, so you know what's funny is I was kind of reviewing these movies, and I realized, remember we were just discussing how Resident Evil is defined by the things around it?
Yeah.
Resident Evil 3 Extinction, is that the third one? Extinction?
Extinction, yeah.
It was a Mad Max movie.
Oh, really?
They, according to the lore, within a few days, basically, after the zombie outbreak, the world became a desert wasteland.
Okay.
So it was very Mad Maxy.
Interesting.
And it was a small group of rebel people, which I think that was when they introduced Claire Redfield as well. So they introduced Jill Valentine in the second one, and they introduced Claire Redfield in the third one.
Oh, that's right, because Mila Jovovich plays Alice.
Alice, yeah.
Yep, Jill Valentine's in the second.
Yeah. So they do that kind of thing, and in the...
Yep, Claire Redfield in the third. Played by Allie Larder.
Wait, I thought, did she play a different character? Did she get played by a different actress?
Who?
Claire Redfield? Who played in the... Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, Claire Redfield. Yeah, that makes sense. And she played that same character all the way through all of them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
Jill Valentine, the actress...
Chris came in number 4.
Came number 4, yeah. And he is played by Wentworth Miller.
From Oz. Nice.
It's funny that you say Oz, where I think either Prison Break or he also plays...
Oh, sorry, Prison Break.
Yeah.
That was the show, wasn't it?
Yeah, Prison Break.
What was I thinking of?
You said Oz.
That's another prison show.
That is another prison show.
Yeah, no. Prison Break is the one.
Prison Break. Oz is more of a drama.
Yeah,
I guess
correct.
Prison Break is a drama, but it's a little less realistic. And he also plays Captain Cold.
Kim Cody's is in here too. I don't remember this.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
Retribution was when things started to get good.
What? Really?
If you were willing...
Based on box office.
If you were willing to accept the schlock and just the utter... Here's the deal. What happened, I think here's... Sharknado. Let's take Sharknado as an example.
Yep.
You know how like Sharknado 1, there's a level of seriousness that's in there? And then by the time they get to like Sharknado 3... They're like, fuck all seriousness, fuck all the rules, fuck all the systems.
It, yeah.
Yeah, because Retribution, I think, brings... I think it was Afterlife brings in... I think it's Afterlife that brings in Wesker.
Yeah, I believe you're correct.
This one brings in Leon. Yeah. And they gave him the hair and everything. And they had Ada Wong in there.
Ada Wong's in here too?
Yeah.
Damn.
They really... like, honestly... This one was, let's take known characters that you have and put them into weird scenarios. And the rules just didn't apply.
Oh, yeah, here he is, Albert Wesker.
Oh, yeah. That's what he looks like in his picture? Wow. Okay, sure. He looks so different in the movie.
Shonda Roberts.
He's
his
picture is so totally different from what's up there.
Yeah, interesting.
Okay, his picture, he's Canadian. His picture in there looks way more sense. Like that to me tracks like Wesker.
Awesome.
They were pretty wild. Like you just had to accept the schlock. And I think that's what happened is when the first movie came out, people hated it because it was more action than it was horror. And at that point, that was before number 4, right?
Yep.
But as time went on, Resident Evil became more action. And as time went on, the story of Resident Evil became more ridiculous.
Interesting to see a series go out on its box office high point too.
Yeah.
Interesting. So like, because it only went up and up and up, and then the final one, this is Resident Evil Afterlife, the final chapter. So this one actually grossed $312 million box office.
Yeah, they got ridiculous. Like
on a budget of $40 million, dude, they made some fucking money on that.
Which is why they kept making them. Everyone kept wondering why they make them, but they kept making money somehow.
They should make another based on that. Like if I was the studio exec, I'd be like, make a fucking other for $40 million.
I think Paul is done, and Mila Jovovich.
That's obviously the husband and wife team, right?
Husband and wife combo,
yeah. So, which is funny because maybe it's that partnership that ends up carrying the series for as long as it actually went for.
There's definitely a factor there. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird because clearly he shows off like on Raised by Spoilers, we talked about a movie, Barbarella, where this actress was basically flaunted sexually across the screen.
Correct.
And we were very confused because the director was kind of married or at least long-term relationship, the main actress. And it was a very weird, like, you filming your own wife in orgies and shit like that.
Yeah.
This reminds me of that because look at all of her pictures. You can't tell me he's not putting her in tighter and tighter goth outfits.
Oh, yeah, it gets pretty tight.
Yeah, and okay, 2012, how close was that to the vampire ones with what's-her-face? Who also had her...
Oh, yeah. Underworld.
Underworld, that's
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can see
Kate Beckinsale.
Kate Beckinsale, yeah. So you can see that, remember we were talking about how the games were influenced by the world around them? Clearly, the movies got the same thing, and they were influenced by The Matrix. They were influenced by all these
Matrix, Mad Max, Underworld, whatever Resident Evil Final Chapter was.
I don't know what that would have been. I think it kind of was its own thing at that point.
Top schlock.
Yeah, but it's a schlocky movie, and you have to go in shutting your brain off and not really expecting it to be tied to a Resident Evil thing.
Maybe this is the one I saw where there was like an army of liquors.
It's possible.
Might have been this one.
I'm trying to think of the one with the army of liquors, and I can't think.
There was an army of liquors in one of them.
I can't remember which movie it was.
Yeah, because they were being controlled by someone.
Well, yeah, there's Jill Valentine shows up, mind control. She's like one of the main villains.
Yeah.
In the second last one, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess I got to watch them just to see, because that sounds fucking fun, to be honest with you.
If you completely shut off your brain, and I think...
Oh, I could do that.
When they made the first Resident Evil, everyone wanted it to be like, okay, we're going to do the first movie of Resident Evil, and it's going to be the two main characters, going to be Chris and Jill.
Yep.
And it wasn't that, and people were very upset. And then, at some point, people just let go. And let go of those constraints and those chains, and went, fuck it, we're in for a ride.
Interesting. So I'm just looking through this. Yeah, another mention of Onimusha. Very interesting. A lot of crossover with
it's all
a lot of
Capcom.
franchises. Yeah, a lot of crossover, which is kind of cool.
It's all the same makers. It's all Capcom.
So this Resident Evil 5. Moving on from Resident, that was 2009. There was also Resident Evil Dark Side Chronicles on the Wii.
Yeah.
And I thought this one was more of a traditional game. Oh no, it's another on the rails light gun shooter for the Wii. All right, everybody, moving on.
I don't know why they keep making
Oh
these.
my god!
They just remind you know what they remind me of is do you remember that arcade game? What's it? Not Monster House, Horror House. What's that shooter arcade game where it's kind of like
House
Time
of the
Crisis?
Dead.
House of the Dead.
Yep.
Yeah, reminds me of that.
There was a 3DS game in there. Who knows? Didn't get
Which
great
clearly
reviews.
that was inspired by like they have. I love how they have the axe guy on there. That was pretty cool.
Resident Evil Revelations was in there as well.
3DS. I never played that one. Yeah. Never touched it. See, that's weird. Is there's so many of these games that even like people who've played a lot of Resident Evils combined, you and I, we haven't played them all.
So it's weird. This was set up like in an episodic way. That was the weird thing about Nintendo 3DS, like licensed games at that point. They were always taking a shortcut. They were always like either it's episodic or nothing's in the game's connected, or it's a puzzle game, or they just did all these fucking weird things.
The way I look at it is someone created a game and then went, shit, we need to sell this, put the Resident Evil title on it, and redo some of the assets.
Yeah, and then there was Operation Raccoon City, which was just a straight up, just like, wasn't that just a shooting bloodbath in it? I think that was just a straight up shooter. I'm pretty
Never
sure.
played it.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of it.
Oh no,
just
no!
now.
This is the multiplayer one, I think.
Oh,
Yeah, this is like the first true, just like stab at like a big multiplayer type thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a big online shooter. Anyway, didn't do well enough because they didn't make another. And then Resident Evil 6 also came out in 2012. And I'm curious your thoughts on this one. How did they end up at this one? This is a big departure. So they moved away from co-op and they went back to strictly single player experience. However, it's split across 3 separate storylines.
They still had co-op in this one.
They did?
Yeah.
I don't recall that.
So they had a little bit of it. They had the addition of it. They had a DLC for Ada Wong's thing, which
4 characters if you include Ada Wong's DLC.
Yeah, so. Yes, they had a total of 4. Which what was it? The son of Wesker? Which
Jake
first
Muller,
of all,
Jake Muller.
Yeah, that guy threw me off because that meant at some point someone fucked Wesker.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What the fuck?
You wouldn't fuck Wesker?
Well, sure, I would, but I don't ever imagine Wesker being the guy to like. Be like taken advantage of, and C, I don't really think that's what he's interested in.
But who was it, I wonder? Who do you think it was?
I never figured out, maybe I just haven't played enough, like what Ada Wong's whole goal is, because she just keeps showing up and fucking over Leon. I assume she's the baby mama.
She is unnamed.
Yeah.
Yep. Albert Wesker's ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, they don't really talk about her.
So, yeah, but main characters in this, Leon, Chris and Jake Muller to kind of get things started. And he's the one with the powers, right? He has powers. So he's lighting up his fists, he's punching shit, he's kicking,
he's melee.
sliding. Yeah, he's a big melee player. So they're really trying to like divide up the gameplay here. And maybe that was kind of the vision they had originally for Devil May Cry, which became its own thing for Resident Evil 4. And then they had to work it in somehow. They had to get some sort of super powered character into this one.
Yeah, and this one sold 4.5 million.
Damn, huge drop.
Yeah, so it's the third most sold game so far. I'm guessing second only to Village, I'm going to assume.
But like a 60% drop in sales versus Resident Evil 5, which is shocking. So that's actually wild. I don't even know.
They went from 4, then they went to 5, which had huge numbers, then a drop.
It did get reviewed that much worse, though. So it's the reviews for some of these are pretty abysmal. Interesting to see Famitsu giving it 39 out of 40.
I think it's because the co-op of the second one, or the fifth one, had a huge impact on this game.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it made the game sell more because people would play with their friends. Like, I had Rob try and get me to play the game with him. How many other people successfully got friends to play with them?
Yeah, it looks like some of the reviews, they're sort of summarizing here that for many reviewers, it felt like RE6 was a more generic shooter than distinctive survival horror game. That's an interesting take.
Yeah, it's funny that I had seen a few reviewers on this at some point where the statement was 5 felt like a game, 6 felt like if you took the new Resident Evil, the second generation of Resident Evil, maybe even the third. I think 5 and 4 is almost on its own.
Yeah.
And then if you calculate 5 and 6 are almost on their own as their own generation.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like 4 is more like Devil May Cry, whereas this one's more like Gears of War. And what happened is on 6, it felt formulaic.
Yeah.
It felt scientific. And I think that scared a lot of people off.
A lot of games became like that in that era, though. PlayStation 3, Xbox 360. I remember a lot of titles and franchises that were good, say, in the PS2 GameCube era coming over. And so another one that I can think of as an example of this would be the Spider-Man franchise. Coming off of like Spider-Man 2 and Ultimate Spider-Man, which was not, I think it was called Ultimate Spider-Man, the more comic book looking one, which was kind of meh.
Yeah.
But Spider-Man 2 was a masterpiece.
Spectacular. I think you're thinking Spectacular.
Yeah, maybe.
Spectacular or Ultimate.
Yeah. So but for Spider-Man 2, that was like a masterpiece. So I was very excited for the first Spider-Man game on Xbox 360 and PS3. It was actually Spider-Man 3 based on the movie. And what I was expecting is an experience very similar to the PS2 version, but I don't know where they went wrong with that, or if they'd switched teams, development teams or something, but it felt slow. The controls were clunky. It was very linear in terms of its presentation. Like there was just nothing about it that felt like Spider-Man 2. So it's weird, but like they almost like gaming during this era in my memory became very formulaic in a lot of ways.
Here's the deal is what's happened is in those early days, gaming was very experimental.
Yeah.
No one knew what worked. There wasn't enough out there and the money wasn't there yet. And then during this era, the money was there and people knew the money was there. And so now the science got involved, but there wasn't enough science to know what was, it became more of a science than an art.
Yeah.
Nowadays we've realized you can't have full science.
Right.
Otherwise it becomes samey and generic and doesn't quite make money. Now we still have games today that are full science, but they're cleverly hidden science.
Yeah.
Back then they were obvious science. Now they're just cleverly hidden science.
Yeah.
With your MOBAs and
if you think about some of the most successful games from that time, at least for like action or fantasy games, were games that kind of broke the mold. So I'm thinking of Mass Effect 1 and 2, Dragon Age Origins, even like Elder Scrolls 4 at the time, Oblivion, kind of breaking that sort of formulaic approach to gaming, right? In development, Fallout, Fallout
Gears
3.
of War started the era.
Gears of War as
famous.
well. Yeah.
But it started it. And it was...
Gears of War was a hard left turn for like
hard
action titles, and it was so fucking good.
Yeah.
So, love that game.
But Gears of War, I think, defined the that almost action genre, and clearly it had an impact on these games.
Dude, massive impact. So I would say games for a decade after the first Gears of War were all kind of emulating Gears
all
of War.
gray and cover based.
yeah, the cover. Oh my god, the cover systems.
But these games were like 6 was impacted by it. It was all this grayish color.
Yeah,
it was clearly a thing of its time.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it definitely felt like its place in time for sure.
Yeah, but it didn't sell that great because of that, because it felt more formulaic. And at that point, I think it had been enough years that Gears of War and the other ones had come out that we started to feel the science of it. Whereas number 5, you didn't get to feel the science yet.
So yeah, actually, the last time it was released was 2019 on Nintendo Switch. So
Yeah,
even modern gamers can play that.
I feel old when I go through some of these.
So
Because I remember 5 being not that long ago.
Yeah.
Because I remember Rob being like, it's co-op. It's a Resident Evil. It's co-op. You should come play with me. You'll love Resident Evil. And I'm like, I know. I've touched on it a few times. I don't care.
So now this is where we get into more of a experimental era here. So there's a few years in between.
Now we're starting the new generation.
Yes, that was 2012 Resident Evil 6, at least the initial release of it. So 2013 marks the release of Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and then 2014, 2015 we get to, and that's Resident Evil Revelations 2, and that's just a follow-up to the episodic weird thing from the Wii. That's all that is, not very special. Umbrella Corps comes out in 2016. This is their... They've gone full tactical shooter. So obviously, this is the age of Call of Duty and what's the other one? The Tom Clancy one. That was more like tactical.
Splinter Cell?
No. Oh God, I can't even remember.
There's Ghost Recon.
Ghost Recon. Thank you. Yeah. Definitely looking a lot like a Ghost Recon cover there, if I've ever seen one. But then a year later, this was in development in the whole time. Resident Evil 7.
No, Resident Evil E7.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, my bad.
Because they started to do the things where they put the numbers,
the
Roman numeral numbers
Resident
into the name.
E7 : Biohazard. So my bad.
Which is funny that they use, like, out of curiosity, what is this titled in Japan and Biohazard?
Yeah, Biohazard.
Yeah. But what is this called? Because we know that Resident Evil is called Biohazard in the European and Japanese markets. First of all, at this point, did they rename it Resident Evil globally?
They might have. They might have actually.
Because right now it's called Resident Evil Biohazard. So if they didn't change that, it would have been Biohazard.
Biohazard
Resident Evil. Yeah, they could do that. Yeah.
Biohazard 7.
You know what? That actually makes sense considering the story plot of this one. Like the name Resident Evil makes sense.
Yeah.
Because this is sort of the what do they call it? The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
One.
Oh yeah, this is okay. Yeah, did I play this? If I didn't play this, I at least watched the entire thing.
This is where Resident Evil finally got not shitty for me.
And this hit its mark too, I believe. Great reviews it came out to, sold well. I recall this being kind of a big event for gaming in general.
It is.
Oh yeah, great reviews across the board.
Yeah, it sold 11 million units.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, Metacritic PS4 was 86, Xbox One was 86. So yeah, pretty good reviews all around too.
Yeah, it sold 11 million.
Wow.
This was amazing because this is the first of the first-person shooters, right?
Oh, interesting. It's a call out here to one of the designers from Spec Ops: The Line was working on this.
So here
that's weird.
Here's what's really weird.
Probably because of the shooting elements.
Yeah. Here's what's really weird about this game is, again, these games are built upon... I don't find that these games are defining the genre. They're being defined by their generation.
Yeah.
So in this game, it was clearly impacted by games like Fear.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Fear 1 and 2 were awesome.
Yeah. So, like, this game was clearly trying to be Fear.
Yeah.
And same was obviously Village.
So just to be clear for anybody who isn't familiar, this is the first one that does the first person view. This is the in a full 3D environment.
This is also the first one where it's mostly based on characters, right? Because now they have what are their names?
Ethan Winters.
Well, Ethan Winters has to go. He's just a dude who has to go find his wife. But he goes into like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre family group.
Yeah,
that's a bunch of lunatics.
And
he has to try and escape their lunatic household.
That is so awesome.
And that's what this is all about.
Baker family,
yeah. So this one I find is different than the rest.
Humanoid fungal creatures known as the Molded. Was that before or after Last of Us?
No, this was... So here's I don't know, but here's the deal is the fungal creatures was kind of what 4 was that. Right, because 4 wasn't a zombie virus.
Oh, yeah.
They were creatures with like parasites inside.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And they had mold before. Like the game has expanded its science of stuff. So it's not crazy.
So Last of Us is the same universe as what you're saying.
Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. It makes sense.
It would actually track.
Perfect sense.
It would track.
Oh man, so Last of Us, the TV show, is the best Resident Evil ever made.
That I can agree with.
Hell yeah, man. All right.
But no, it was pretty. I think this was my favorite because it was character driven, and I did feel like when you're playing through Ethan, and there are some really confusing things that just don't make sense. Where I think this is the game where they cut off his hand and staple it back on.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and things don't quite make sense.
Yeah.
That like that, and you're like, okay.
Don't worry about that.
Don't worry about that. We'll deal with that in Village.
Yeah.
But it didn't really make much sense. But I thought it was really cool. I thought these characters that would just pop out of nowhere. And remember number 2, they had the guy with the trench coat, Hunk, who would just show up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Clearly this concept of you just walking down an aisle and then someone just shows up and fucks your day up.
Yeah.
Is something they've had in this game for a long time. Is a good scare. This one really did it well because you'd suddenly have one of the bakers just burst through a wall and be there, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, was it like so the like half naked pig-headed man chasing you around a garage? Like with
that was one of them.
Yeah, that's what a family, dude.
Yeah.
What a family. This also had didn't this also have like it had like choices or something that could affect the outcome?
I don't remember. I know that at the end you could choose to save your wife or not.
Oh yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, there are some choices there. I don't remember all of the choices. I just remember the one where you could cure your wife or not, Mia or not.
Yeah. Interesting.
Obviously, you chose to cure her in canon because it shows up in Village.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I thought it was fun, and I think a lot of other people did. But a lot of people are still angry that it's not Resident Evil. I think that's a huge factor in Resident Evil is they're constantly changing their style.
Yeah.
Which keeps them fresh and new, but also it alienates some of your old things.
Well, Chris Redfield's implied in this. That's interesting.
Yeah, he is implied, yeah. Because he helps you escape in a helicopter.
So I think there's enough things to say this is canon.
Oh, it's canon.
Yeah.
It's canon. It's absolutely canon. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely canon.
So interesting game, interesting time as well for 2017 for that to come out and just make as big of a splash as it did. This I recall being a huge hit on PC as well. So just people were gravitating to it on PC, and a lot of the reviews I saw.
Well, with it being PC. First person, it was easier to play. It was better to play.
This is also the first one in the age of streaming as well. So I recall seeing this as one of the first major games I remember seeing streamed a lot.
Really?
So,
yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, this was right at the beginning of Twitch and all that.
Yeah, it was a great game. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, cool. So following that success, so they made a bunch of money there. Very, very happy. They since went into remakes. So Resident Evil 2 remake that came out in 2019. Resident Evil 3 remake came out in 2020. Both came out to great acclaim. Resident Evil 2, however, got damn near perfect review scores,
which I think was a good idea because remember all these people that came in 4.
Yep.
Now all these people that came in 7.
Yep.
And now they're saying, hey, go play the past. Remember, there's all these people that came in later numbers. So now it's hard for them to experience the whole story from the beginning.
Yeah.
And we were clearly living through a new renaissance.
Yep. I agree. And the new renaissance definitely took it a long way. I think they made quite a lot of money on this. Actually won a lot of awards too, which is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, for
Nominated for virtually everything.
Oh, yeah. The number 2 remake, which is hilarious.
DICE Game Awards, won a Golden Joystick, won Japan Game Awards, Game Critics Awards, it won Best of Show. Just really, really, really impressive for a remake game to be pulling all that. Very, very impressive. God, it looked fucking good too. The streams for this I watched just looked amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just very,
it was
very
a
nice looking
gorgeous game. Scared the shit out of people.
It's amazing. And then Resident Evil 3 remake. So definitely also very good. Came out not quite to the acclaim Resident Evil 2 did. I think it still did pretty well for itself though overall.
It's sad that I didn't even know. I forgot this one exists.
Yeah.
I remember 1 and 2. I forgot about 3.
That's because it came out right at the beginning of COVID, I think.
Yeah. Oh, is that when it came out?
Yeah, it came out April 3rd, 2020. So that was we were in lockdown. Unless you could download it, there was no way to get it.
Which by then you downloaded all your games at this point.
Unless you were in the US where GameStop was considered an essential service.
Are you serious?
So, yeah, they stayed open.
Wow. Wild.
Yep, curbside, baby. Curbside. So let's see. Then it was Resident Evil Resistance. I'll be honest with you, I don't have a fucking clue what this is.
No.
What the frick is this?
Dedicated server survival horror game developed by blah blah blah.
What is this?
Like 4 survivor players competing against a mastermind player. Oh, I do remember this.
It's Rob, like a MOBA.
Rob tried to get me to play this, and I never did. It's no, it's not a MOBA. What it is so let's see if I can find that. Did you ever play those games? There's another game I really preferred over this one. asymmetrical combat game. So think like what's that game with the huge beast that you fought? Like 4 survivors had to fight like trap a huge
Evolution.
Evolve.
Yeah.
Evolve, and so think of that.
Yep.
Except horror. So you were like a AI mastermind inside of a facility, and you had to stop the survivors from getting out. They had to work together, get keys, do the survivor thing, do the Resident Evil survivor thing.
So there were steps
to get out, and you would either like just you had points to allocate type of thing, or you had, I don't know, Rob could describe it better than me, but you could allocate certain things. Like you can set off certain traps. You can pre-set up a trap, and then you'd set off a monster. You could take control of a nemesis type monster to fight them a bit, and your job was to beat them.
Wild.
So it was asymmetrical. Rob loved this game.
How did it do, I wonder? So seems like a pretty good idea. Mid.
Yeah, I did mid, but Rob loved that game. I always enjoyed. There was another game that I always preferred, and I'm forgetting it, where you played against the more classical mythical monsters, but it was still in early access when I played it. You played against like Bloody Mary and the Weeping Angels and stuff like that.
Oh, gotcha. Interesting.
It was way cooler.
Now Resident Evil Village. This was the one.
8. It's 8 age.
Oh, you're right. It's not even really 8 because it's VII.I age. So that's like 7.1 age. 7.1
5,
age.
6, 7. I guess that's it's incorrectly written 8.
Yeah, there's one too many dots in there. So it's Roman numeral 7.I.age. So yeah.
It was funny because I never realized this was called Resident. Because notice the name above it is just Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Village.
Oh, I see. The little dots are supposed to be part of the L.
Yeah. So
this just made it all gold.
Yeah. So you see that like Resident Evil 7 Biohazard.
Yeah.
And then Resident Evil Village. I didn't actually realize that Resident Evil Village was one of the numbered ones for a very long time.
Interesting. So 8 age Resident Evil. So very nice. Very nice.
Weird.
Yeah. This, of course, this should be fresh in everyone's minds for one reason only. So this
Big Mama Damascus.
So the Big Mama vampire that was in there. So it's like 9 foot tall, Victorian looking vampiress.
Yeah. This obviously followed number 7. Like this was clearly the
also starring Ethan Winters.
Yeah, same characters.
Yep.
This one they definitely involve Redfield.
Demetrescu.
Demetrius. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I can never pronounce it. Redfield shows up in this one and just like pops off your wife.
Yeah.
And then steals your baby.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck? It's a great entrance because everyone knows Redfield as being a generally good guy. So it was like, what the fuck is going on? And he's flying around in a helicopter. I mean, we already knew that. For those who've played it before already know he's flying in a helicopter that has like the symbol that looks very similar to Umbrella.
Yeah.
Which I think you find at the end of number 7.
Yeah.
When you're flying away. It's
the
Umbrella.
You see it on the
helicopter.
chopper.
And you're like, oh my God, is that Umbrella? But then you realize, right, no, that's like the anti-Umbrella company.
Look, he's a real company man. That's all you need to know about Chris Redfield. He's a real company man. He worked his way up. He's just an honest guy, So that's all you gotta.
I do like that they finally admit why Ethan Winters can just take as much destruction as he has and survive.
Why was that?
So
wait, spoiler warning.
Yeah. So in number 7, he died at like the beginning of number 7.
Okay.
And he became mold. He became the fungus, just like the Baker family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, but he can like not fully transform.
Well, he doesn't know he can, so he doesn't have like full. He doesn't have full powers.
Gotcha.
But he can like staple himself on and keep going because I don't know. It just works.
Just works, dude. Staple it back on.
He can do it. Like it's possible. He just doesn't know he can do it. But by the end of 7, his entire family are just mold people.
That's a good plot, I guess. So like, just staple it back on.
They're all mold people, and they just live a life of normal humans.
But these were all full on vampires, though, right? Like undead vampires.
Not exactly. No.
No.
So the story arc here is that I forget her name. Mama something.
Demetrescu.
No, her boss. I forget her name. The original creator. So there's one character that's the original creator of everything.
Yeah.
She was around during the Spanish flu.
Okay.
And she lost her kid, and she went down and found a bunch of mushrooms that are fungus.
Yeah.
And she went to go die, basically. And she found a bunch of fungus that kept her alive.
Oh.
And she eventually, it was her science and her research that led to Umbrella existing and led to the bio research that Umbrella did. Now, this is not taking place in the past, but the lady who did that has gone insane.
Okay.
And through circumstances, trying to get Ethan's kid to turn her into her own kid because fungus people.
Yeah. That's it's such a Resident Evil storyline.
It is. It totally is.
You gotta love it.
Yeah.
Pretty fucking cool game, though. Definitely worth a watch or worth a play. Heavily streamed, heavily memed as well because of Lady Demetrius.
Yeah, I think 7 and 8 are way better Resident Evils because they are horrors. They are I call them character horrors.
Yeah,
where it's not about the action of shooting. That's something you do between the good stuff.
Yeah.
But I also recently was introduced to a concept from Rich from Raised by Spoilers when we were talking about God of War. Is there are certain things that I feel would have been better as a movie or a show than a game.
Okay.
And I feel like Resident Evil 7 and 8, the shooting and the action in between are just boring things till you get to the good stuff, which is like the cutscenes and the story and the character interactions. And I feel like these would be better off as a show, as a horror TV show.
Interesting. So and I see what you're saying about eras. This is definitely sort of a separate era for Resident Evil 7 and 8 compared to what came before. So it's kind of like 7 and 8. 5 and 6 was its own thing. 4 is kind of standalone, and then like 1 to 3 plus 0. Yeah, I can see what you're saying. Is like they tend to group themselves together in that way. And even the remake, there's the remake era that we're in now, and they're all third person action shooters, right? So based on Resident Evil 2, 3, and now 4 coming out this month.
Yep.
And the rumored Resident Evil 1 remake as well that I swear I heard about, but we'll see what happens. So, but yeah, that catches us completely up here. So we are now all the way caught up to 2023. There was also something coming out in 2022 that was, well, I don't even know if it came out. Resident Evil RE Verse? What's that?
I never heard of it.
And you know what? Who cares? Because we've been going on this for a while. So Resident Evil Remake's about to drop here. People are pretty excited about it. Getting lots and lots of playtime online.
It's going to be interesting because, again, this was a weird game, right? Stylistically, it was its very own game in comparison to all the other ones.
Yeah.
So whatever comes out from this one is going to be strange.
Yeah.
I'm interested. I'm curious. Is it a full remake? Have they discussed that?
Yeah, it's a full remake. Oh, you're still saving Ashley Graham now.
Of course you are.
I thought she was the vice president's daughter.
No, she's the president's daughter.
Oh my God, that ups the stakes.
Yeah.
That ups the stakes big time.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. President, I will go and save your daughter from the Spanish cold. So that's awesome, dude.
It's definitely a wild story arc.
Yeah. I can't wait to see this one. That looks fucking sweet.
Yeah, I'm just curious about this game because it feels so schlocky. Its story arcs are so schlocky and weird. And the movies
saving the president's daughter.
Well, just not even that, but like the same villains showing up over and over and over again. Gotcha. The weird story arcs.
Also, the mysterious man selling you weapons.
The mysterious man selling you weapons.
Yeah.
Forgot about him.
Just there, selling guns.
Just there.
Don't worry about it.
Like, I don't know. It's just, the game is so weird that it takes itself so seriously.
I love that there's a price on saving Europe or whatever, and it's just however much money you can amass to pay this man.
I forgot. That just reminded me.
What if you couldn't actually afford the grenade launcher? Like you figured like the president would have sent you with more money.
You're
take $1 million to save my daughter. Just take it. You know what I mean?
You'd think they'd send an army.
Yeah. He sent you with $1 million. You pay the guy one time, here's $1 million. He just dumps everything on the ground.
This is clearly the wrong generation because you know that like Obama would be like, they have my daughter, nuke them.
Yeah,
drone strike. Drone strike.
We're gonna do a drone strike. I can't do an Obama voice.
I can't do it either.
Yeah.
But I can do his hand gestures. For
you are. You're doing the hand gesture. Yeah.
Drone strike.
Yeah. So that's that's exactly what happened nowadays. So 100% or a full scale invasion.
But I don't know. So I gotta know. So what do you say are like the pillars of what makes a Resident Evil game that cannot be changed throughout its entire time?
Ooh,
what if they broke these? You'd be like, that's not a Resident Evil.
I would say an attempt at a horror style element. So whether that's and they've been over so much stuff now, like a full scale zombie invasion versus creeping around the scary mansion versus creeping around a scary village or two. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And getting surprised and or attacked by things that want to kill you. So I think that has to be part of it. So just the imminent sense of danger, right? Sort of throughout. Other things, so weaponry and ways that you use the weaponry and sort of being creative with it, and I'm thinking back to the originals where you know you're able to use multiple different weapons.
Tactical action.
Yeah, tactical action, I would say.
Or resource conscious action.
Yeah. Correct. And then and yeah, I think those are the mainstays.
Okay.
I think those are things they have to always be there.
I think you're right. I think horror is the key. And I think it's weird that Resident Evil, because it's evolved so much throughout its time, that's pretty much the only requirement.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah.
Is it needs to be modern era. I don't even think it needs to be that, actually. If you made a Resident Evil in like the 1800s, where you used, you know, old pistols, like your revolver pistols.
That would be sweet.
And you're in like the Civil War era
Yeah.
or something. We could live with that. Like, this fungus that has existed in this cave, like it's not Umbrella anymore, but it's like, this fungus that existed or something. Like that would totally work. It's not the modern era. You don't need that. I think you're right. All it needs is kind of Cthulhian or straight up John Romero type Dawn of the Dead zombies.
Yep.
You need one of those two. Right, it's evolved from
I think a Cthulhu mythos would be cool for this.
It would be, but that's kind of what we've got nowadays. Except it's not supernatural Cthulhian. It's like scientific Cthulhian, but it's still creatures that boggle your mind and just aren't right. You know, body horror, that kind of stuff. I think you need body horror and horror in general. Yeah, and I think that would pretty much. And I think shooting. I think it has to be shooting. You couldn't do like an Oblivion sword swinging. I don't think that would play out. I think that stops it from being a Resident Evil.
Yeah, it wouldn't be as fun.
I think the whole resource management, I think, is an
although there was a series that did well with that exact thing you're talking about. Back in the day, it was called Nightmare Creatures.
I never heard of that one.
So sweet. Action title where you fight like zombies and midnight like nightmare creatures and werewolves and shit like that. And yeah, it was just fucking cool. Oh. So yeah, you got to check it out sometime. It was on N64. I would love them to come up with a modern version of that.
That would be that. All right, cool. So now we've answered that. Now I got to ask the question. After all of that we've gone through, do you think this series deserves to live on? Do you think it still has something to offer us? Both TVs, movies. Yeah, we forgot to talk about the Netflix. There's the animated movies, which we won't go into. But there's the animated movies, which kind of go up and down. Yeah. They mostly follow Leon. And then there's also the TV series.
That just came out last year. A whole season of it, and it already got canceled.
Because it's shit.
Yeah. Pretty rough go.
They spend an entire plot line following... I think it's Wesker's kids. Is that what it is? Yeah. They're in theory clones or something like that. And it's them doing like a mystery research, not during apocalyptic. Like, who wants it? That's not what we want.
Yeah, and it takes place in like a sort of
like suburbia,
pre-built like umbrella community. Full of people who work for Umbrella. So it's like them and all their kids all living in this community, and then they just not a very good show. Kind of disappointing. It's just weird. Like, on properties that are not licensed, they tend to hit pretty well for horror on like Netflix. Yeah. I'm thinking of like Midnight Mass and stuff like that.
Well, those are all the same creator. Midnight Mass, Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah, Haunting of Hill House.
They're all the same creator.
Those are great.
Those are but they're all the same creator. Give this movie to them.
Yeah.
But I also think that creator would do better with a Silent Hill.
Oh, totally. Yeah,
than with a Resident Evil.
Absolutely. So yeah, I would say if for visual media, just stop. Don't. Like movies, TV, just don't do anymore. It's dead. It's over. So as far as...
don't want to give them another shot?
No, not really. As far as games go, though, I think they've gone to such a great length to reinvent themselves with the 7 and 8 sort of mashup, and then also the remakes. I think it could keep going.
So you think that if this was like, say, if we were still talking during like the Resident Evil 6 era, you'd have called it.
If we ended at 2016's Umbrella Corps, I would say end it. It's done.
But because of the new resurgence of the remakes and 7 and 8, it kind of resurged your...
Yeah.
You know what's weird is I came to the same conclusion. But I will add this caveat. I've been saying this entire time that I find that Resident Evil does not define a genre. It does not define itself. It is not its own thing. It doesn't stand as a pillar. It doesn't say, I am Resident Evil, this is what I do. What it does is say, the world has reflected upon me, and I give you something in return.
Yeah.
To me, that doesn't deserve to continue. You as a franchise need to define yourself uniquely, and it doesn't. It hasn't defined itself uniquely it did back in the day, right? It defined itself in its combat and its mechanism. It even was kind of based on Sweet Home. It kind of defined itself in 4 because it defined Devil May Cry, not the other way around, really. And then ever since then, it's been struggling. It was defined by Gears of War for 5 and 6. And then it was defined in this ones, it was defined by, hilariously enough, I find 7 and 8 there were clones or games that like tried to be the new Resident Evil after 5 and 6. And they made that first person jump, like Fear. Like, it's a great example. That game to me did Resident Evil better than Resident Evil did at the time. Now they're just trying to copy off those games that did that. And also, even Doom 3 kind of tried to do the first-person horror
But
thing.
what is out Resident Evil right now?
At this exact moment, nothing. But
That's the problem.
You're not wrong, but my problem is they're not themselves. They are not a pillar. So they do not, as a mass
Sometimes
franchise...
you just got to last the longest.
Yeah, but that doesn't make them worth living.
No, it doesn't.
But that's my argument.
Yeah.
I've talked about liking...
It's a valid argument.
I've talked about loving 7 and 8.
Yeah.
But my problem with it is I can't sit here and rightfully say because it's Resident Evil.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck. You could call that game Fuckboy Tomboy.
Yeah.
And I would still love that game.
Well,
it doesn't matter.
Let me run this one by you. So another great first-person franchise in more of a modern era. Let me run this by you that stuck to its roots and defined what it was, and then tried to do that thing was BioShock, and sort of also survival horror, right, to some extent.
Yeah.
But you get to BioShock Infinite, and my favorite game of the series, not many people's though.
Yeah.
And that was the last one, and there's a reason for that because they took a formula that worked well. They defined themselves very clearly, and then they kind of wore it out quickly. You know what I mean? Like and then it just sort of imploded. And
I'm fine with that, but I'm one of those people that you need to die a hero. Don't live long enough to become a villain.
I got you.
And that's to me what a lot of these discussions are about. Is I feel it should have. I mean, it got reinvented, and that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
But I'm on the brink, man. Like, there's a part of me that thinks it should definitely die. But with the new reinvigoration, I'm kind of tempted to see where it goes. But they've done 2 good games. Call it. You're done.
That's this is the game industry, my friend. They're going to beat this thing into the absolute dust.
You're absolutely right. But I'm torn on this one because I do enjoy the games, but I struggle to think they're Resident Evil games at this point.
So let's see. It did in its first week it shipped 3 mil, but what did it do ultimately in sales? 6 reached 6.4.
Yeah. And that's for the latest. Like, that's not that.
It's not bad.
It's not bad, but it's not great.
No, it's not as big as their other franchises.
No,
certainly.
but my point is they have ultimately changed themselves so much. They are not a Resident Evil game anymore.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like if suddenly you are playing chess and there's 5 dimensions to it and there's a card game added on.
Yeah.
Is that really chess anymore? No. It's not. So is this Resident Evil? No. Go call it something else. Start something new. Have the balls to start a new franchise.
Just call it the Japanese title.
Sure.
Biohazard Vireji.
But you get my point. I think the name needs to die and they need to reinvigorate the universe.
Yeah, fair enough.
And instead of focusing on the Biohazard, what they can do is focus on Supernatural and do the whole character stuff.
Yeah,
like they've done in the last one.
I agree.
But it doesn't need to be a Biohazard.
Well, it'll be interesting is because certainly they're working on an original title in the background that would basically be Resident Evil 9. So I'm kind of curious if they finish off this sort of trilogy with another first-person title.
See how it
starring
goes.
Ethan and if it's any good.
Ethan's dead.
Oh, what?
He dies at the end of it.
Oh, I guess I didn't see the end of it.
Yeah, he dies at the end of
it. So
Village.
spoiler warning, everybody.
Only his technical mold child and mold wife survive.
Oh, okay. Good for them. So just molding about. Just molding, doing their mold
And they
thing.
killed the progenitor of all of the viruses.
Okay, well, good.
I mean, that doesn't help you any. But
so they basically have to do something new.
No, because this character just showed up they just introduced this character.
It'd be cool to see like a game based in like the Call of Cthulhu universe. But, made by these guys.
That is what I would love to see. That's what I mean.
So sick.
Get rid of Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Get rid of these chains that bind you.
Yeah.
And go do something wild.
I want more Cthulhu in gaming.
Yeah.
I want a lot of it. So I think it's a cool mythos.
Yeah.
I think it's a cool thing to dive into, and there's just not enough of it in gaming.
That's what I mean. Go more supernatural. I think this needs to die and start anew. Find something cooler or different.
Yeah.
And we'll be cool with this.
They never will, though.
They never will.
Because Lovecraft. He's a bit of a problem, that guy.
Yeah, but he's giving out everything for free. You can get his stuff.
Oh, true.
It's
true.
I think he's in what's it called? Free use now at this point.
Yeah, it's been that long.
I mean, he's a giant fucking racist prick, but yeah.
But maybe the boss is like a Hitler Lovecraft and you have to kill him.
It's why I've always loved the book and the show Lovecraft Country.
Yeah.
Because it's just a giant middle finger to that guy, to Lovecraft.
So cool.
All right,
That's
great.
the Resident Evil franchise, baby.
Yes.
So moving on to some playing and watching.
Yeah, let's do some pow.
Playing and or watching. And in this section, we're going to discuss what we've been playing and or watching or reading or whatever we're doing, really.
Yeah.
Whatever we're doing. So,
or some news, if there's something worth newsworthy. There isn't right now.
So, well, there was a couple weeks ago, there was actually the Sony State of Play. We kind of went over that. Did we go over that last week?
A little bit, yeah.
We did go over it last week. So there wasn't a huge amount of information there. But what did drop that I am playing right now, very excited about, is Octopath 2.
I'm curious, did you play the first one?
Yes, thoroughly.
Did you like the first one?
Yes, I did, very much.
How much better or worse?
Same in a lot of ways, I would say. I would say so far I like it as much. I'm only like 6 hours in, so it's hard to tell at this point.
Okay.
So I'm hearing it's like a 100-hour long game if you complete all the chapters and all the stories, so it could be very, very long. What I would say is it's for the first 6 hours, first impressions, it's pretty fucking charming.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you that. It's hitting all the right notes for JRPG. It's hitting all the right notes for combat. It's
Is it very similar combat as the first one?
so similar.
Okay.
So similar. I mean, each character kind of has their own things they do, but that's what I love about the series is they're very imaginative with how you use each character. Everybody feels very unique from one another, and I quite like that. I quite like that. So your strategy changes quite drastically based on who you have in the party. I do find myself utilizing the I can't remember. It's like the Bravely Default thing where you defend to build up your attack meter.
Yeah.
I forget what it's called in this.
Yeah.
So I do tend to use that
We'll
a lot.
call it the Brave and Default system.
Yeah, because it is that, right? Yeah. So, and then, but I find myself using that a lot, which I did in the first game as well.
That makes sense.
But honestly, the game's been great so far. The few characters that I've unlocked so far to play with are just awesome. I really, really like them. One is a sort of, not an alchemist, but she makes medicines and stuff.
Are there any characters that are in the follow-up from the first go to the second one?
Not that
All
I can
new
tell
characters?
yet. Yeah, no, nobody I've seen yet.
Is it all voice acted or is it all?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very all voice acted. So and then I unlocked a sort of samurai type, not samurai, more like a Ronin / Chinese warrior kind of character.
More of a Chinese warrior or more of a Japanese?
No, mix of both in many ways.
Okay.
Yeah. And then also a what was the one? Just a dancer.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But she has the knife. You know how it goes.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, there's only two types of dancers, like the mesmerist dancer and the knife dancer.
She kind of does both.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, she kind of does both.
There's one that does debuff dancers or buffs, and then there's the assassin dancer.
Oh, she does both. Yeah, she does the buffs and debuffs, and she assassins.
Oh,
she does all these things, right? But her character isn't an assassin. She's actually a very nice girl.
Oh,
right?
okay.
She has big dreams. She's going to move to the big city. She's going to be a dancer on stage. So,
hey, dancer, get over here.
yeah. She's going to Hollywood, everybody. Going to Hollywood.
Oh, you're just doing this to get money through school, eh?
Yeah. But it's funny because, just like in the first game, you kind of pick people up, other characters that you kind of haphazardly. Like when I walked into a village where this girl lives, like her sister runs up and she says, "Hey, my sister's trying to get out of town. Looks like she could travel with you guys. How does that sound?" And you're just like, "All right." And then she's like, "All right, see you later." And then she's just standing there. And then it's like, "Do you want to see the first chapter? Do you want to know how you got here?" And I'm like, "Yeah." But it's so some things like that happen. They're very JRPG, sort of tropey. You know what I mean? And it's funny. But no, there's nothing I've seen so far in the game that I've disliked so far. If nothing else, I would say so far the environments are even better looking than the first game. They're even more filled out. It's like I said, it's quite charming.
I played through the first one and I just couldn't. I own it. I just couldn't. The combat was so basic to me. Right, I had done the Bravely into the Default Bravely Default.
Yeah,
and I had mastered it. Like, I don't want to say I mastered it, but it stopped being a struggle. I learned to just kill enemies right away.
Yeah,
and then never have to use the default.
Yeah,
and I did the same thing. Like, it became so formulaic. The combat became so boring to me.
Well, you could do that. I mean, I've already stumbled into. One thing that is different about this game is, I would say the first one, actually, your paths felt more linear.
Yes,
and in this, they're somewhat less linear. So I get the sense that there's several directions I could have already gone in the game from my starting point.
Okay.
And I just went the way I did. So because like those are areas I could survive in, right?
See, I felt the combat happened too often because I think they still had random combat, right? They have random combat. In the
there's random combat encounters,
and I felt like, okay, this is not a good enough combat system to make me want to keep doing random combats. That annoyed the shit out of me. And then the story arcs felt so, not contrived, but simple, as in I predicted them.
So far, 2 of the 3 that I've encountered are pretty good. One of them sort of meh, it's in the middle of the road.
I just found the first one didn't grab my attention. So when 2 was announced, I went, if it's anything like 1, I can't see myself.
Well, if I purchased a physical copy, I would lend it to you, but I didn't. So
no.
yeah.
No, instead I played Chained Echoes.
Yeah, which my understanding is very good. So I got to play that after. Yeah. But I would say for anybody who's a big fan, current fan of JRPGs, and you haven't been turned off in any substantive way, this is going to be a good one for you. It calls on all the roots of JRPGs so far. In fact, if you're a fan of even like Live Alive,
Live Alive.
Live Alive. So I was not a huge fan of that one because I am a huge fan of Octopath, and I thought Live Alive just fell short. So
yeah. Live Alive, I don't think I talked a big talk about it when we had it on here, and I never finished it.
What's funny about it is it's kind of a pre-Octopath. It's just not as good.
I think the problem that I had with it is I played all the good story arcs at first. I was like, this is amazing. This is so good. And then it
when you get to the talkie story arcs.
When you get to the talkie story arcs, things got a little bit more dry.
Yep.
And then not only that, but it kind of felt sucky to restart over and over and over again. Yeah. So you didn't get that sense of power progression.
Yep.
Which is key to JRPG, that yep. And now you're like, oh yeah, I get another ability. You didn't really get that in Live Alive. So
in Octopath, you definitely get that because once you pick up another character, so you definitely notice how much more efficient you are in battle.
Oh yeah,
because like each story starts with just yourself, with maybe 1 or 2 side characters kind of battling, and then by the time you start uniting your team together, and you realize, oh shit, like we're actually pretty fucking tough together. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
we're gelling.
It's cool. It's cool, man. I quite like that about it. So yeah, I'd highly recommend it. So based on my first impression, I'm loving it.
I wish it had a bit. It's weird that I say this, but I feel like a game like that would benefit more from the similar combat as like something like Chained Echoes, where Chained Echoes you have a total of like an 8-party team, and you swap them out regularly.
Yeah.
So you get to see more of like if Octopath. How many characters in Octopath Traveler, give or take?
Whoa, 8.
8. And how many do you have on the field in any given fight?
Max 4, I think.
Yeah. So Chained Echoes, you'll see all 8 of your players constantly. Yeah. So you get this sense of it is a party. You have your main characters, but then you have like your parties swapping in and out. Yeah. So it feels like less your characters and then those side characters that stay in the inventory screen.
Yep.
It feels less like that. And I feel like that
battles become complex just because of that though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like that concept would have played better in something like Octopath Traveler, where you're forced to play with all your different characters throughout any single combat.
Yeah, maybe.
I felt like that would have done really well to really emphasize we're a bunch of random people having random backstories that all coalesce.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what it is. It's these different vignettes of these different characters that somehow coalesce into this bigger story.
That's right. Yeah. Anyway, so far so good. I'm going to let you know if it goes south at all, but I quite like the first one. This one is same. Slightly better so far, I guess. But a lot of the same. So if you like the first one, yeah, you're gonna love this one. So
that sounds good.
Guarantee it.
It sounds good that they can the Switch has brought back classical JRPGs.
Oh yeah, it's such a huge way.
It's brought back so many old classic games that we grew up on.
Yeah, really. If you're a JRPG fan, the Switch is the place for you. 100%. 100%.
For sure. Especially with something like Xenoblade Chronicles.
Oh, yeah.
That came back.
Yeah. Really, the only thing you're missing is the Final Fantasy VII remakes. So, but, eventually. So,
You'll get there.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, you didn't get a reunion either.
No.
I have been playing Orcs Must Die 3, which is a weird little tangent one.
Were you talking about that one recently?
Was I?
I think so. Describe it.
You fight against, it's kind of like a tower defense where you've got a wave of orcs coming and you have to set up traps and various designs in order to stop them from getting to your rift.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did talk about that.
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, well. I haven't really, like, what have I been doing? Oh my God. Oh, apparently I'm starting another run of, or I'm replaying a bit of Elden Ring to help my wife platinum it.
Nice.
Because God knows she needs my help in that game.
Did you guys see Ant-Man?
No.
What? You were supposed to see Ant-Man.
I know.
So it's the best Star Wars than Star Wars, I'm telling you.
I spent this entire time rewatching and replaying some of the Resident Evil stuff instead, so I could be more prepared for this.
That's fair.
I realized how much I've forgotten about this stuff.
Oh, dude, yeah. I mean, it goes all the way back to, 1996? So,
I'd forgotten so many story arcs.
It's only like 27 years of games. Like, whatever, dude.
It was just so weird because I was watching, it was some things I played, some things I watched, because I can't go through all of Resident Evil and remind myself of it all just by playing those games. There's not enough time in a week. Well, in like, a week or two that we prep. And I was going through and I was just so like, oh my God, I forgot about this. Oh my God, I forgot about that. It was wild.
You gotta see this, man. Like, it's so divisive. Like, Google users, 82% like this movie. Rotten Tomatoes, critic is 47,
scroll down.
47%. Audience is 83%. This is one of those
Why is
films,
audience is 83?
But that's what I'm saying. This is one of those films the audiences just love, and the critics.
Do you know what that tells me?
It tells me it's trendy to hate on it. That's what it tells me.
No.
Yes, 100%.
That's not what it tells me.
Because it's a good movie.
No, what tells me is a very simple, basic movie that has no complexity to it. Because for whatever reason, most audiences like really simple, basic story arcs. And I am not that guy.
Well, then people weren't watching it.
I don't know.
If that's what they
I assume it's not deep or it's a classic movie where everything that's done.
It's a superhero movie.
Yeah, but does it reset itself at the end to back to like? Because that's the problem with what. You know what?
What do you mean reset itself?
You know what?
Okay, spoiler warning here. It introduces the fucking Council of Kangs at the end.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck else do you want?
Okay.
That is the big story arc baddie, is all the fucking Kangs.
All right. Here's what we'll do. Because maybe, I don't know when we should do it, but we should definitely do a Marvel franchise recap. As we
I'm pissed. I'm pissed.
I have been very, very upset with the latest. I don't even want to say like the part.
I'm sorry.
5 or
none of the last like 5 movies have been as bad as people say they are. They're just not. They're just not.
They're not great.
So it's
they're empty. That's the problem. Is they feel empty. They feel like a simple CG movie with action stuff, but no real character growth or development or anything like that.
No, this one has character growth. It has development. Maybe not so much of.
They definitely don't have it for the main characters.
Scott Lang, but for everybody else it does.
For villains, but that can only carry you for so long.
Not even for villains.
Okay, well, I don't believe you. Like who really?
After we stop recording, I'm just gonna spoil the shit out of this.
Okay, who changes? Who at the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie that's going to stick around?
Yeah.
Actually has character growth and is fundamentally a different character. Has experienced something new that has changed their ideology.
His daughter and his mother-in-law.
What? Don't fucking do dumb shit?
So what do you mean?
So the daughter does dumb shit.
Yeah.
And she causes this whole problem.
Yeah.
And the mother learns, maybe I should tell people about like an entire universe within the quantum realm.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't hide that from my husband and their entire superhero family.
Yeah, that's how comic books work.
Yeah, I get that. So is that their only growth? Is, hey, don't be a fucking idiot child, and hey, maybe I should tell the truth sometimes?
What other growth are you talking about?
Real fucking character growth. Like, let's take a look at Thor.
This isn't fucking Batman.
It fucking should be. That's what I'm talking about. That's what makes a good movie. Let's take a look at let's take a look at Iron Man 1 or 2 and talk about his growth.
Okay, let's talk about Iron Man 2.
Like, they're terrible movies, but at least they have character growth. They've got something where a character went from being especially number one. Remember, the number ones are like the ones that brought everyone's attention to the shit. The number ones clearly created character growth, except for Captain America, who never has any character growth ever at any point until Civil War, which is why Civil War is one of the best ones.
But why is Captain America 2 like the best Marvel film then?
Which one's 2?
Winter Soldier.
Yeah, so sorry, that's what I meant, Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
I didn't mean Civil War. I meant Winter Soldier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Winter Soldier is the best one because Captain America, who's a character who didn't change in number 1, changes in number 2.
Yeah. In a serious way.
In a serious way. But he still keeps true to his cap. He just has to, I'm not Patriot Boy anymore. I am Rights and Freedom Boy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He does change. None of these characters have changed since their initial movies. And that's fine to not have those character changes in the big action pieces like the Avengers. You don't have time for that.
Yeah.
You just want an action scene. You want to see these characters that grew. This character grew here. This character grew here. And now because of their growth, they can join together. And you want to see the growth as a party, which is what you see in the first Avengers.
Yeah.
You don't see that in any of the other movies. Ever since those movies, they stopped being like that. But we were all fine with that up until Infinity War.
Spider-Man No Way Home, he definitely grew as a character.
No.
He was forced to.
What did he grow? How did he change?
He had to learn how to let go by the end of it because nobody remembered who the fuck he was.
That's not letting... No, he was forced to do it. He didn't want to do it. He was forced to do it.
Yeah, but he accepted it.
That's not growth.
It is growth.
That's a scientific fucking fact.
No, but it is growth. And he could have still tried to find a way to keep fighting that result or whatever, but he chose to accept it.
He is. At the end, he's like, I'm going to go and like convince my girlfriend and whatever to try and like, I'm going to go interact with them again.
No, he walked away from him without trying to convince him.
Right, he did.
So, dude, see, but this is the problem. Nah. Everybody's you're on the bandwagon. You're one of these haters just fucking hating on these things. Look, is it as good as like the Batman was? No.
There's a difference between hating it and thinking they're terrible movies between thinking they're nothing movies.
Oh, dude.
They're movies of zero value.
Oh, my God.
There's a difference. I hate The Room, but I still love The Room.
So, well, I think a lot of people are kind of missing the bus on this one. So it's a shame though, because honestly, like what it does for sci-fi, what it does for Marvel, all good things in this movie.
I feel like the new Marvel movies are more like.
But you also haven't seen it, so you still got to see it.
Yeah, I've seen all the other ones, but
what? But that's what I'm trying to get at. Like that's
one movie is unlikely to change the entire thing.
I'm trying to make though is just like people passing judgment on it. I bet there's fucking reviewers who didn't even see it.
Remember we were just talking about Resident Evil 6?
Yeah.
And we were talking about how it felt scientific?
Yeah.
That's what these movies feel like to me now.
Like formulaic.
Not just formulaic. No, formulaic is formulaic. I meant scientific. As in, it doesn't feel like a creator's creating something.
Yeah.
It feels like a council of people with money is making something. Which is not the same. It feels not creative. It feels not character-based. It feels like, how do we produce money?
Yeah, it was...
How do we suck money from these people?
But this was so utterly bizarre that at no point in the film did it feel like that.
I have seen Bizarre. I have seen Bizarre.
Yeah.
This is not bizarre.
You didn't
Everything
see the
Everywhere All at Once is bizarre.
Well,
this is not bizarre.
That was a decent movie, but it was.
Is it more or less bizarre than Doctor Strange's latest movie? Because that movie wasn't
probably more.
That movie was not very bizarre at all. Not nearly as bizarre as everyone wanted it.
It was definitely more. It was definitely more.
It was not nearly as bizarre as people wanted it to be.
All I'm saying is, I think you're missing out, man.
The fact that they've not done Kang justice in most of this is it ruins it for me.
Well, they just did at the end of this one.
I don't think so.
What do you mean?
Kang was supposed to be like, he's kind of like Apocalypse from the X-Men.
No, there's a whole shebang of Kangs. There's a whole ton of them.
I get
Council of Kangs.
I get that, but
this one here, this was just like a bitch Kang they didn't like. And they fucking they just exiled him there.
Oh, I get that, but he was supposed to be like the ruler of Egypt for a while and go through time.
Well, yeah, those are different Kangs. Then they introduce him at the end of the film.
I guess I don't know. I can't see this movie changing my opinion of Marvel. You're selling okay. What are we going to bet on if this changes my opinion of the latest Marvels? Because now I'm bored by them.
No, I'm not saying this is going to change your opinion of the latest ones. I'm saying, could you watch this and potentially like it? Yeah, you might.
What are you willing to bet on whether or not I like this? Because I will tell the truth. I'm a very honest guy.
Bet something. Just go watch the fucking movie.
No, because right now you're telling me to go waste a bunch of time on something that's meh.
I'll buy you the movie tickets if you want.
That's still my time. You can't. It's still time I don't have.
Look, Orcs Must Die. It's still going to be there when you get back home.
No, not necessarily. I play co-op, so I got another friend I'm playing with on a regular basis. I have to put out what is this? 2 hours? We'll say 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. By the time I go in, did everything, it's 3 hours?
It was 2 hours. Yeah.
2 hours. So by the time I do, it's 2 hours and a half, right? Give or take-ish. It better be damn well worth my 2 hours.
Well, just pregame a little bit,
Just pregame a little bit. Like, should I go watch Creed 3 instead? Which sounds way more interesting than this movie. With Jonathan Majors.
Probably.
See, that's my point. That's my point. Why would I do that? I would rather go watch Creed 3, and I haven't watched a Rocky movie in a very long time.
I would also say I kind of want to see Cocaine Bear too, so maybe see Cocaine Bear first. Maybe that's the one we should review.
Yeah, Cocaine Bear.
It's the best Marvel film. It's the absolute best Marvel film. from Phase 5. Oh my God. Okay, so yeah, so we're settled that it's Cocaine Bear for next week?
Clearly.
Okay. All right. Well, I got nothing else.
That's it.
So that's it. That's it. That's it for this episode of Ronan. What? My throat's dry. This episode of Ronan Geek and Fish Podcast. I'm exhausted. So this is Alex Austin signing off, and
Leon Plumby and Adam.
you can find us on Twitter at Ronan Geekery. Make sure to add us. Let us know what you think. Like, did you see Ant-Man? Did you hate it? Did you love it? Do you think Marvel Universe is dead? Do you want to see it restart? Like, what do you want? What do you want from me?
Yeah.
What do you want?
Just tell us what you want.
Yeah, tell us what you want, and we'll tell them. So, but they won't listen. So, and then so you can hit us up on there. You can also hit us up on Facebook at Ronan Geek News. You can listen to this podcast pretty much anywhere, but you can also listen to it on Bitcade podcast app, and I would really appreciate that. So we're always looking for listeners on Bitcade. Cool thing about Bitcade is we also have some bonus content posted, video content even, that you can unlock and help monetize the podcast as well. So we can keep doing what we're doing, or at least feel slightly motivated to. So to go see Ant-Man, right?
Yeah.
So somebody pay for this man's Ant-Man tickets. So please, so get him out there.
I'll probably just take that money and go watch Creed.
Watch Cocaine Bear. So anyway, that's it for this episode. Please listen also to Raised by Spoilers Pod. We'd really appreciate that as well. Cool. See you next week.